Thomas Paine, Sam Adams, Benjamin Franklin. These men spoke up for what they thought was right. From their courage came such documents as the Declaration of Independence and the Constitution of the United States. From their willingness to speak what was sometimes unpopular but right, we enjoy such liberties as freedom of speech, the right to keep and bear arms, and freedom of religion. There are those who still wish to oppress our freedoms, and there are still patriots willing to stand up and defend life, liberty, and the pursuit of happiness. Men like Zeb Bell, who honor our founding fathers and what they stood for. It's now time for Zeb at the Ranch, speaking up and defending your freedoms. Brought to you by Magic Valley Les Schwab Tire Centers and all of the other great advertisers on the program. And now, Zeb Bell.
I think that actor Clint Eastwood said it best. When I refer to gun control, I'm going to always think about his statement. Quote, I have a very strict policy on gun control. If there's a gun around, I want to be the one controlling it. Amen, Clint Eastwood. Here comes, who is it? Kate Smith. I almost said somebody else. Kate Smith and God Bless America, followed by a Patriot. With our Pledge of Allegiance to start off the work week on a Monday, last day of September. Thank you very much, Kate Smith, and God bless America. And good morning. Welcome back to a fresh, brand new week. The last day of September, and then we go into October. And I'm Zeb Bell at Zeb at the Ranch, and our major sponsor, your Magic Valley Les Schwab Tire Centers. All 7 great locations serving you, and, of course, some of our great advertisers, including Lee's Furniture, Floors, and More at 459 Overland and Burley. And they are going to be sponsoring our first prize that we're going to be giving away this week for the drawings on our blog, Cow Pies and Coffee Cups. Thank you very much. I'll tell you about that a little later. And along with Western Waste Services, always at your disposal. Get on the rod service today, 734-6969. Ladies and gentlemen, shock above all shock, and absolutely astounded. I think this is the first time in, I don't know how many years.
1 week.
Pardon me?
1 week.
1 week? What do you mean 1 week?
51 weeks.
51 weeks?
Yeah.
Since Idaho, the University of Idaho, and Boise State University have won a game on the same weekend?
Uh-huh.
Holy buckets! Turn up the music and get a hallelujah in here!
You can't actually hear the hallelujah because I'm too into the Vandal Fight song.
I know, you're into the Vandal Fight song. You and Larry and Nancy Hudig and everybody else, I mean, they're walking 4 feet off the ground this morning. They're never going to get their penny loafers dirty, I'll tell you that.
I know, and we don't get to hear this very often, so hold on a second.
No, I know. Take over the program. All the Vandals, stand up, be proud that you beat a very poor football team in Temple.
They were 0-5 on the season. Of course, we were 0-4, so hey, at least now we're 1-4.
Both of them were made with a match in heaven.
We need to come up with a few more teams like that on our roster.
But surprisingly, I will say that Boise State and University of Idaho won for the first time together in 51 weeks.
Well, 51 weeks since Idaho has had a win. But as far as
wow.
I'm going to have to look at that stat to see the last time that Boise and Idaho won in the same week. It's been a long time now.
Well, ladies and gentlemen, needless to say, little Miss Idaho over there in the studio is basking in the glory of a Vandal win, and she probably, if you want her to do something special today, today's the day to ask.
Pretty much so. And the Seahawks won. Fairly.
You know, I want to talk to you about that later on today because I saw some big holes in their screen door.
Yes, there were.
Okay.
Okay, we've got Al on for the pledge and Michael on for the weather.
Oh, my goodness, look how late. I just swallowed a fly! Hold on!
Oh, he had to turn off his mic so he could hack the fly out. Which, by
this
the way,
is not funny. Oh.
The fly is saying Monday.
When you hear this, that means I'm a mass serial fly killer. Al, good morning. How are you? Oh, that was terrible.
You all right?
No, that was absolute. Blah! That's terrible.
When are you going to learn to keep your mouth shut?
Well, how do you ever run a program like this with your mouth shut? Now, doggone it, leave me alone.
Oh, you got more trouble than a three-legged dog.
I don't think so, except when I'm leaning on the fire hydrant. Anyway, go right ahead. And how's Polly, first of all?
Well, we're doing great. I mean, we're going to do some more testing that today, so everything's coming along great, and I appreciate everything everybody's done for us.
All right. Well, God bless you. Give us the pledge, please.
I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
And you know our prayers are with you and her. I hope everything goes well.
Can I say I'd like to thank everybody that has supported us during this time of, trouble, and especially the Lunch Bunch for the way I was treated on my birthday.
Well, Al, you deserve it, man.
Well, I really appreciate it.
Well, God bless you, and you come across as kind of a crusty old piece of bread, but you got a heart as big as Texas.
Well, I hope so.
All right, buddy. Take care.
Have a good one.
You bet. God bless. Nice man, and we wish him the best. And by the way, Lunch Bunch was fantastic at Perkins. We appreciate it. Hey, Rock Creek Growers on the corner of Maxine Lane and Irene Streets in Kimberly. Oh, my goodness, 40% off trees and shrubs and plant materials. Still plenty of time to plant. We're going to start getting a little bit warmer weather after this kind of pattern goes through here for the next couple of days. We'll have Michael tell us about it in just a moment. But Rock Creek Growers on the corner of Maxine Lane and Irene Streets, they're waiting to see you. Stop in and see them today, and they bring you MichaelRogersWeather.com. Good morning, great one.
Morning, Zeb Bill. How about the Minnesota Vikings?
Boo!
Well, I wanted to tell you that because when they play Green Bay, and you being a former student of the game of football, you have to say the Vikings did find themselves a quarterback yesterday, correct?
Well, I'm not going to give the Vikings any credence whatsoever. I don't like them, never did. The Purple People Eaters, I think, just have one eye in the middle of their forehead, and I'm not going to say anything nice about them, so don't try to engage me in that conversation.
Zeb Bell, you are a football coach, a student of the game. You mean to tell me you're not going to say they found a quarterback?
They're not the only ones that found a quarterback yesterday. So did the Cleveland Browns.
Yes, they did. Thank you. Morning, everybody. Didn't mean to get off on the football thing there, but it's a brand spanking week of you, me, and weather, and listening to Zeb talk about the Idaho Vandals and the Boise State Broncos. You're going to have a nice day today, but you're going to have a chance to shower along with that. And, oh, by the way, it's going to get breezy. You might see some wind gusts up to about 35, 40 miles an hour, sustained at about 25. When you come out of all of this, tomorrow morning, when you and I get together, you'll have a beautiful sunrise between the Twin Towers, and it's going to be nice and clear. Your high today will be 68 for tomorrow. And otherwise, enjoy the day, enjoy the weather, enjoy Zeb Bell and the Green Bay Packers. The only weather you got.
Got a boy, MichaelRogersWeather.com, the greatest weatherman in the world and a very dear friend. Rock Creek Growers on the corner of Maxine Lane and Irene Streets, bringing you the best weatherman in the universe, MichaelRogersWeather.com. Holy smokes, I got to pay some bills. I'm way behind here this morning. I got a ton of things to remind you about. Don't forget SafeLink Internet. Oh, my, yes, with Shane and the rest of the crew. Holy buckets, get on the program. No contracts required, no credit checks, free professional installation. Oh, my goodness, they got new high-speed Internet packages with no data limits. Oh, call 677-8000. I've been on the program. I swear by it. They are the best. SafeLink, wireless Internet, absolutely the best. SafeLink, high-speed wireless. You call them, 677-8000. Also, for the best place in the world to take your clothes to get them clean, you know, it's Daryl's Cleaners at 1223 Albion Avenue in Burley. Oh, my. Every time I take those Rumply Crumplies in there, I mean, it's like kind of an exciting thing to go down and pick them up and then say, holy cow, that shirt never looked that good. It looks brand spanking new. Well, that's what they do. Everything comes off just looking brand spanking new. Check it out. Go on in there and see my friends, Kevin, Cindy, the whole crew at Daryl's Cleaners, 1223 Albion Avenue in Burley. We had an outstanding lunch bunch, and I want to take the time right now to say thank you, thank you to everyone that participated. We were over 50 people there in a room that was very nice. It was pleasant at Perkins. We just had a really nice time. The food was fantastic. Thank you very much, Perkins. Thank you very much, Lunch Bunch. Everybody could hear everybody else talk, and it was just really pleasant. So thank you for your support, and we're making plans for the next one. So thank you again for all your help. Let's see, I had somebody else I wanted to thank here this morning. Oh, and Polly Butler, if you're listening, God's blessing. I hope you feel a lot better. Now, this week marks the first week in October, and we're going to be giving away a special prize on Thursday. And what we're going to be giving away is a beautiful painting, compliments of Lee's Furniture, Floors, and More. They are going to be giving our prize this week. And if you haven't signed up for Cow Pies and Coffee Cups, you'd better do so, because we're going to have the name drawn from all of the people that are signed up, zebbell.com, and then go ahead and click on for Cow Pies and Coffee Cups, or just call me and give me your address and we'll put it on there, and you might be a lucky winner. We're going to have a different prize every week through October, so get registered, and the grand prize will knock your socks off. It's going to be fantastic, okay? Ramsey Heating and Electric, don't forget those great folks. Located at 2600 Overland Avenue in Burley. There's a fly right there. I got to get that. Stand by. Ramsey Heating and Electric, and they know that harvest is in full swing, and they'll have your cords, cord ends, fuses, everything ready for you right there at the counter. All you have to do is call ahead 678-0459, and they'll have it ready for you. Over 57 years in business, serving you. Ramsey Heating and Electric, where they always provide warm winters and cool summers. Nice people. Okay. I got a couple of things I want to get out of the way. Seniors and younger children, be sure and get your flu shots now. Now is the time to get your flu shots, and they are the generations, if you will, at greater risk. And I was reading an article, as a matter of fact, the other day in the paper. Be careful what you touch. Be careful that you wash your hands often, and get your flu shots now. People, the experts are saying that flu season is going to be a rough one this year, so get your flu shots. Valley-wide Home and Ranch. Well, we were over there the other day, and I talked to Steve, and he's got the Smart Licks. You bet, the Smart Lick Advantage. And they've got for your cattle the NE22 and the NE30, and these are absolutely the best. Year-round feeding applications, self-fed, safe and convenient, predictable consumption, and very economical. Check it out today. The Smart Lick supplements right there at Valley-wide Home and Ranch, along with all your livestock feed, all your livestock material. Everything is there for you, the farm, the home, and the ranch at Valley-wide Home and Ranch. 910 South Oneida in Rupert. You stop in and see them today. All right, calls are welcome. 436-2244, 1-866-927-4587. What is going to happen if the government shuts down tonight? Are you cringing in fear? Are you off in a corner, just shaking, tearing your hair out? Your knuckles are white. You're absolutely scared to death. I'm not so sure you should feel that way. I don't think all the doom and gloom that people are trying to purvey from especially the Democratic Party. Most Americans, and I want to underline that word, most Americans will not feel anything. Really? Yep. Most Americans will not feel anything. Now, federal workers will not get their paychecks on time, and the military will be off on their paychecks. This has been over 20 years since we've had a shutdown. And some of the experts that I've called and talked to, one of which is going to be on our program later this morning at 10:06. Be sure and be listening. His name is Ilya Salman. He's an author of Democracy and Political Ignorance. He's an expert at George Mason Law University, and he's going to tell us exactly what's happening and what will happen if the government shuts down. Now, there are some good things that will happen if the government shuts down, and we'll just talk about that, because right now, with the proposed shutdown, that means they're going to stop spending. They're going to stop all this idiotic spending. Now, some of the experts have said already this morning, and I've called many people back on the East Coast, you can expect, and it's already open back there, that we're going to see probably about a 100-point drop in the stock market. About 100 points. But here's something that's good and beneficial for all of us. Oil prices have dropped like a stone in a bucket of water. They're dropping way, way down. It'll be interesting to see how long before the effect actually takes place at our pumps here in the state of Idaho, which is notoriously a higher-priced state. And Congressman Mark Meadow of North Carolina is basically the known now as the godfather of the shutdown, said he's looking for and telling his constituents he doesn't care. He doesn't care about the shutdown, because he's working for his constituents that voted him in office. I like this attitude. I saw the man on television this morning, and he was asked very poignantly, well, now listen, wait a minute. You probably won't get reelected. You'll be hated. And he said, that's fine. I'm doing what I think is right. I don't think Obamacare is right for the nation. I don't think Obamacare is right for my constituents. They have asked me to vote against it and try to get it stopped and repealed. He said, I don't think it's right for Obama to ask for a higher debt ceiling, which means basically he wants to spend billions and billions, up to another trillion or so of our dollars. My constituents have asked me to stop him, so I'm going to. And I'm not concerned about re-election. That's what I like. That's what I want to hear. It's going to stop exorbitant spending, and it's going to be really interesting to see what happens in the next couple of days. Will they pull it out in a last-minute shot, if you will, tonight? Or will they let it go, and we'll see what the repercussions are and the ramifications? Your calls are appreciated. Give me your thoughts on this. 436-2244, 1-866-927-4587. Hey, it's that time of the year. If you need to close out your sprinklers and have the lines blown out before they freeze, and that's looming on the horizon anytime, you better get a hold of Gano Landscaping and Sprinkler Service, 150 South, 950 West of Paul. Number to call, write this down, 431-8733. Now, I'll tell you what, old Scott does a darn good job. We've used him here for a long time, and I'll guarantee you he knows his business, and he can help you. Give him a call. Don't let those lines freeze up. Call him at 431-8733. Gano Landscaping and Sprinkler Service. Your turn. Give me a jingle on the landline, 436-2244, 1-866-927-4587. Don't forget, too, Rain for Rent. Oh, these are great, great people. 134 South, 600 West, Highway 27 in Paul, and they've got the Rain Key. You betcha, pivot, sales, and service. And, by the way, I mentioned that Don Taylor won that barbecue grill they were giving away over in Rupert. Well, now they're starting a drawing for a 40-inch flat-screen TV. It's going to run through this month of October 21st, and don't forget to check out the great Reinke rebates for this fall. They've got all the top pros working there to help you. Frank Jensen, Skip Hilton, Brooks West, the whole bunch of great guys at Rain for Rent. 134 South, 600 West, Highway 27 in Paul, 438-5065. Good morning, caller. You're on the air.
Yeah, you just mentioned old Scott Canoy. He's a good old boy.
Yeah, he is.
He does blow him out good.
All right.
But, you know, yesterday I was watching some of that stuff on, that Chris, whatever his name for, on Saturday afternoon shows with, you know, different people.
Mm-hmm.
And he had that Kane on from Virginia.
Mm-hmm.
Okay, Virginia is a coal state, right?
Right.
Okay. He is every bit of you can think of adding on to Obamacare. He supports it, and he sit there and told a bunch of damn lies with Lee there, and he just would not answer the questions that Chris Matthews asking.
Why do you suppose it was? Did he not know the answers, or was he trying to hide and shelter the answers, or quite frankly, he was scared of the answers?
he was scared of the answers and all of the above, because he just wanted to go back to one thing only. Well, I tell you, if he's that kind of guy from the coal state, which Obama is trying to cut down on, I sure as hell would make a recall effort right now.
Yeah. Well, you realize, of course, what Joe Manchin did from West Virginia. He's absolutely came out adamantly opposed to anything with Obama and his electrical shutback of the coal industry. And there's a Democrat right there that's had it with Obama and the demonization of coal, which is a product that we need desperately to keep our electrical grids on function.
Yeah. And yet, you get guys like that will come across, and trying to help the American people. And then we got guys like McCain that turns around and sticks us in the back.
Hey, I want to ask you about that. Real quick. I took some heat last week after the program on Thursday because I came out at various times on that show, and I really slammed John McCain, and I slammed Lindsey Graham and some others, and some of the so-called, I guess, Republicans that called me were up in the air saying, oh, these are great guys, they've done so much for our country. No, as far as I'm concerned, at one time maybe they had done some great things, but right now I find them nothing more as appeasers.
That's right, they are. And if we don't do something about it, they'll keep appeasing, because I still say McCain is only a Republican name only. He's a liberal Democrat.
Well, it's this attitude of, oh, gee, let's just go along to get along. I'm not buying that anymore, Al.
No, we've got to sit down and say, that's enough. Keep our nose out of a lot of them countries over there. Hell, they've been fighting before Christ was born. I mean, let's start taking care of our own people instead of sending all our money over there to these other foreign countries that turn around and stick us in the back.
Well, there's a lot of people that are coming out with the same sentiments, and many of which have voiced it over the weekend. Senators and congressmen are saying, wait a minute, this is absolutely ridiculous. Maybe this is a good thing, having the shutdown, so we can stop our silly, frivolous spending, which is not helping anybody or anything, and put the kibosh on Obama as far as having an open checkbook. Honestly, I'm going to come out and say it. I am not opposed to a shutdown. It might hurt some people, but in the long run, I think it's going to get the attention of this administration.
I'm not either, because, we give up a hell of a lot, and if we have to give up more, we will. But I'll bet you a $5 bill or a hamburger that all this during this so-called shutdown stuff, Mr. Obama is going to be flying around to the golf course.
Absolutely, boy. You've touched on it right there. Or away doing something as far as campaigning, but yet not doing the statesmanship job that we put him in office for.
Yeah, and ain't we glad we got the Secretary of State and Defense.
Oh, let's not. We could go on for hours. Thanks, Al. God bless you, man.
Bye.
Thank you. We've really got some problems. There was an article written, and I'm trying to find it. I had it right here, and I'm going to read it tomorrow on the show. It was a great editorial by a lady by the name of Maureen Scott. And it was sent to me by my good friend Dave Bego, and Dave relinquished his time on his own personal blog and used her information for the blog this week, and he asked me if I would read it to my audience, and I'm going to try to do that tomorrow morning. Travel Loop Supply with my old buddy Jim McCall, 1050 West, 203 South Hayburn, 438-8730. Holy smokes, they got shop towels. Holy smokes, they got grease guns and grease and Bubba ropes. I'll bet you a lot of people out there in the mud and the muck are getting stuck, and they're going, where's my Bubba rope? You got to have a Bubba rope. So get one right there at Travel Loop Supply. And they got all the window washing for the trucks at Harvest, everything. Travel Loop Supply, 438-8730. They deliver the goods. Time now for the Capital Press Ag Minute. It's brought to you by Pacific Steel and Recycling. Great people. 320 West Main in Burley, 678-2321. Here's the Ag Minute.
Today's Ag Minute brought to you by the Capital Press, the West Ag Weekly.
Mexico's growing craft beer industry sent its first delegate to Idaho's barley country last week as part of a trade team. Jose Ruiz, manager of MI Survey SA, and a representative with the Craft Brewers Association in Mexico, said the craft brewing in his country has enjoyed recent annual growth above 60%. He said Mexican craft breweries still have too little volume to contract for U.S. acreage or buy directly from the big malting companies. He He says the industry is expanding and expects it soon will be able to make direct purchases. But the major brewing companies on this trip have bought Idaho barley for nearly a decade. Grupo Modelo has a malting plant in eastern Idaho.
For more agriculture news and information, turn to the West Ag Weekly, the Capital Press, and CapitalPress.com.
All brought to you by Pacific Steel and Recycling, and they pay top dollar for scrap iron, tin, cars, auto, stainless steel, everything. And don't forget, Pacific Steel and Recycling, 100% employee-owned, as they have been for 25 years. Really good people serving you. Call them, 678-2321. Pacific Steel and Recycling, 320 West Main in Burley. Your thoughts. Do you want to see the government shut down? Do you want to see the Republicans start to show some backbone and say no to Obamacare, no to the shutdown until they get a budget that they can live with, and no more spending? And wouldn't it be great? Wouldn't it be great to see political employees of ours, the senators and congressmen, abide by our wishes and do what we tell them to do because they are our employees? Wouldn't it be great? How about you, caller? What are your thoughts?
I'll tell you, where was our senators up there during the floor when during the debate on the floor when that Bob Kirker in Tennessee was chastising Ted Cruz and Mike Lee over telling them they was the only ones that were against the shutdown.
You know something, Fred? I'm so glad, and by the way, thanks to you and your lovely wife for stopping by the other day to say hello. I appreciate that. But I want to mention something to you and get your response on this. Everybody that didn't appreciate what Ted Cruz did, from Representative King in New York and others, King really came out and jumped on Cruz like a doormat. And he didn't call him by name out of respect. He just said, this guy needs to shut up. And I took a great offense at that because as far as I'm concerned, Ted Cruz, whether he did it for political gain or not, he risked himself and his reputation to stand up for his constituents. I've got a lot of respect for him, and I don't have a lot of respect for the Republicans that didn't stand behind and say, we're with you, go ahead and shoot your best shot.
Well, that's the way I feel. And, you know, he wanted to move that vote to Friday. And Mike Lee was behind him. Where was the rest of the Republicans?
Yeah, where were the rest of them?
Bob Kirker from Tennessee stood up and chastised him to be tell. Harry Reid, of course, he wanted to keep it on Thursday, that vote on Thursday. Now, I don't know why they wanted to move that to Friday, but they had some good reason. They wanted to move it to Friday. But anyway, Andy Roth, Vice President of the Conservative Group for Growth, he said this Crooker, he just turned into a Democrat because he chastised.
Well, Fred, I've said it on this program for a long time, and you're one of my dearest friends and best listeners. You've heard me say this. I am sick and tired of the Republican Party not having any backbone. I really don't care if they're worried more about their re-election. I'm worried more about how they act and do for their constituents and the people back home. And as far as this worried about their re-election, I think that's garbage. I'm hoping that they're back there to serve Fred Preston and Zeb Bell.
That's what I think. Where the hell are they?
Amen.
I'm wondering.
Fred got
back there.
Well, I'm going to find out when they call, believe me. And Mike Crapo is scheduled to call this week sometime, we think, so I'll check it out. Got to run, Fred. Thank you much. Appreciate you.
Okay.
God bless you. Nice people right there. Hey, caller, I'll be right with you. I promise. Don't forget Middlecoff Body Shop in Twin Falls. Middlecoff Ford Lincoln Body Shop. 1243 Blue Lakes Boulevard in Twin. 736-2490. Now, why am I so adamant about telling you that? Because they did a tremendous job for me and my pickup. And I'll tell you, well over 50 years of accumulated collision experience. And here's the quote that really sums it up. They strive to make your vehicle repairs undetectable. A lot large or small, they can do them and fix them all. I know that firsthand. I'm telling you, you better get a hold of them today. Middlecoff Ford Lincoln Body Shop, 1243 Blue Lakes Boulevard in Twin, 736-2490. Take it from old Zeb. They are the best. Good morning, caller. You're on the air.
Yeah, good morning, Zeb. Yeah, it's sad that we only had 19 out of the 44 Republicans. 25, I guess, decided they didn't want to buck the establishment, and they're going to wait till the 2014 elections and so forth and so on, and it's unbelievable. But we have to give kudos and a pat on the back for our two senators. They did vote for the against the cloture. And so give credit where credit is due.
Well, wait a minute. I agree with you there, Adrian. Give credit where credit is due, but the caveat is they didn't support Ted Cruz. And I think that people like Bill O'Reilly and others that slammed Ted Cruz saying, oh, it's nothing more than a political carnival, etc. Hey, the man stuck his neck out on the line because he was acting for his constituents. Whether you agreed with him or not, he stuck his neck out on the line for the Republican Party and against Obamacare. And where were the other Republicans? Did they have a nighttime Betty buy that they couldn't afford to stay up a little bit?
Yeah, I agree with you on that part, and I don't know all the details there, but I thought it was interesting when despicable Senator Harry Reid, and that's what I call him, he's despicable. He's the worst senator in my lifetime, and he's the most evil person that I can think of as far as a senator, and there's been a lot of bad ones. But anyway, there was a young a lady reporter, basically, when he was asking questions or something, she said, well, Senator Reid, don't you think that you're going to be responsible for the shutdown? I'll bet she's probably out on the street someplace. Because I don't know if you happen to see that.
I did.
It was really quite interesting.
I did.
I didn't see the reaction on the face, but did you happen to see that?
I did, and I heard it, and it's going around as kind of a viral thing right now as to being played on the internet and everything else. But the Democrats and Obama cannot take any criticism, especially the president himself. And I want to revert back to, and if you get a chance to look this up on the net, I'm going to be reading it tomorrow on the program. One of the best editorials I have ever read in my life about how shallow, thin-skinned, and absolutely hurtful Obama's been to the United States of America. And it was written by Maureen Scott. Tune in tomorrow. I'm going to do that at 9:06 tomorrow morning. It's an excellent editorial.
Yeah, well, that's great. Thin-skinned, yeah, he's a narcissistic, socialist, and narcissists, they don't get mad, they get even, and this guy can't take any kind of criticism, and then he just comes right back, and of course he's got the media to cover for him, so that's, in his favor, and if you'll read Mallard Fillmore this morning, that's exactly what that little cartoon was about.
But did you hear some of the remarks by some of the other Democrats, like Nancy Pelosi calling the Republicans arsonists and extortionists, and then there was another one that called them terrorists with bombs strapped to their chest. This verbiage is absolutely not going to help anybody, and it's the American public that needs to be calling back there to each and every one of their representatives and their senators and saying, stand firm, don't let the Democrats run over you. We will support you.
Well, it's sad when we got a country where the elitists of both parties run the show, and we're the ones that get screwed.
You got it. Adrian, way to sum it up. Thank you, sir. God bless you. Have a good day.
Okay,
Thank you.
Have a good day, son.
Don't forget Ambulatory Surgery Center at 1344 Highland Avenue in Burley. They are one of our co-sponsors of School Days in Cassia County, heard every Thursday, and I really do appreciate them. They have a board-certified I'm going to say this wrong, but I don't mean to, gastroenterologist. I got through it. With years of experience performing colonoscopies at, of course, Ambulatory Surgery Center. 1344 Highland Avenue in Burley. The number to call is 677-8888. For over 14 years, the Ambulatory Surgery Center of Burley has saved area families thousands and thousands of dollars. First-class medical facility at 1344 Highland Avenue in Burley. You know what? Now, you go ahead and giggle if you want to, but hitting that cold gastroenterologist I'm pretty doggone proud of myself. Gina, that's worth a hallelujah. I didn't mess it up too bad.
Oh, okay.
There you go.
Hallelujah.
Say it real fast, you of the news. Gastroenterologist.
Gastroenterologist.
Say it fast twice.
Gastroenterologist.
Atta girl, I'm proud of you. I am. Woo!
Got a phone call.
Sweating. Good morning, caller. You're on the air.
Oh, good morning, Zeb.
Yes, sir.
You know, the Democrats are trying to paint the Republicans as the real bad guys, but what I'm not hearing a lot about is the fact that what's keeping the Democratic Party in power is the welfare system.
Mm-hmm.
And they're out there, they'll promote as much as they can to keep that welfare system growing and growing.
You know, Tony, I don't care if a person's a Democrat. I don't care if there's a Republican. I just think that we need to use common sense. What right is right, wrong is wrong, black is black, white is white, and just go that way. I don't care about this partisan politics. I just want them to use common sense and a conscience as to what's right for the American public and our Constitution.
Well, things are going to have to come together, and the Democrats are going to have to quit trying to paint us as a bunch of bad guys. Otherwise, we're going to end up with another depression here, and I feel one coming on. I really do.
Let me ask you a question here real quick. Now, you've been around the horn once or twice, and you are a gentleman that has seen the good, bad, and the ugly from Congresses in past. What do you think, honestly, is your appreciation as to what will happen if they have a government shutdown tonight?
Nothing.
Why do you say that?
I think you're going to see the stock market drop a little bit. But as far as anything goes, this is just a big show.
Okay.
That's what, in my opinion, that's what it's all about. It's just a big show to try to make the Republicans look like the bad guys.
I will say this. I will say that I think this would be a show of force, a show of that people have had it with Obama's spending. People have had it with his spending us deeper into debt, looking at higher than 17 trillion, going to 18 or 20 trillion by the time he leaves office. I think it will show the Democrats you can't have your way. You're not going to run slipshod and roughshod over all the American public. I think it'd be a good thing, and I'm going to stand behind my words.
Well, you're absolutely right, and I think this country needs to learn a lesson, and let's get it out in the open. Whatever happens, happens, because there's got to be a change, and there's got to be a stop to what's going on.
I agree. Tony, thank you, as always, for your call. God bless you, man. Thanks.
You're welcome.
Thank
Bye.
you. Calls are welcome and appreciated. 436-2244-1866-927-4587. You know, the partisan attitude in this country, Republican versus Democrat, and then the independents and all the Tea Party and everything else. What's right is right, and what's wrong is wrong. We cannot afford to go down this road, this path of spend when we don't have the money. Nobody can do it. You can't do it. I can't do it. Families can't do it. Businesses can't do it. Why should the Democrats and the Republicans be allowed to do it with our money back in Washington? Regardless of partisan politics, it's time to say, nope, enough. Enough is enough. It's time for the weather and an update with MichaelRogersWeather.com, brought to you by Sportsman's Warehouse, 1940 Bridgeview Boulevard in Twin Falls. Oh, my goodness sakes, they've got everything in there. All the items that you need for being the serious outdoorsman, whether it's for hunting, fishing, archery, camping, boating, everything. Being an ATVer, I tell you what, they've got the quality gear and the top-notch people at Sportsman's Warehouse, 1940 Bridgeview Boulevard in Twin Falls. You stop in and see them today. Here now, MichaelRogersWeather.com.
Well, hello, everyone. Michael Rogers from MichaelRogersWeather.com. Set of a brand spanking new week of you, me, fall weather, and chance of rain in the forecast today. In fact, we got some weather action. Look for a chance of showers just before lunchtime, and it's going to be breezy, too. You can look for wind gusts sustained at about 25 miles an hour, possibly gusting to about 40. It's going to get breezy today, but otherwise, just a typical fall day. Tonight, clear. Tomorrow, sunny. 68 for the high tomorrow, 68 for the high today. Enjoy the weather. Don't know whether you got.
Thank you, Michael. Brought to you this hour by Sportsman's Warehouse, 1940 Bridgeview Boulevard in Twin Falls. All right, it's your turn. Give us a call, 436-2244, 1-866-927-4587. Oh, yeah, we've got a picture here in the news of Minority Leader Nancy Pelosi with her Botox scared look on her face. And, of course, Minority Whip Steny Hoyer with that long dog face. And then many others, including James Clyburn, Democrat of South Carolina, and everybody else. Oh, my, the sky is falling. We're going to not be able to pay the bills. We're going to be shut down. Oh, woe is us. Maybe it's a good thing. Maybe it's a good thing. And as I said this morning at 10:06, Ilya Salmon, the author of Democracy and Political Ignorance, will be on the air, and he is a law professor at George Mason University back on the East Coast, and I think we'll really be informed as to what his thoughts are about a potential shutdown and who and what and maybe not what it will hurt or won't hurt. So we'll be listening to that. Your calls are welcome, 436-2244, 1-866-927-4587. Can you believe this? Honestly, can you believe that the Department of Justice and Eric Holder, oh, wait a minute, stand by, another fly to kill. Bingo! You just met your match. Eric Holder and the Department of Justice are suing the state of North Carolina, it goes into effect today, because they are promoting the use of IDs at the voting polls. So they're going to sue North Carolina. Oh, that's terrible. Why? You should never have to prove who you are. No, just let anybody and everybody come in and vote. Baloney. But at the same time, here's the hypocrisy of this. Last week on our program, we gave you the information about how California is allowing illegals to become legal and let them vote. Now, we had that on the news last week. The state of California is legalizing illegal aliens, making them legal, going over law enforcement heads in California, basically telling the sheriffs of every county, who are the top law enforcement officials, we don't care what you say, we're going to do it our way in Sacramento, and it's illegal. And Eric Holder and the DOJ said nothing and are doing nothing about what California is trying to bully through. But at the same time, they go after Arizona and Jen Brewer, and they go after the state of North Carolina by their wanting to use IDs at the polls. What in the world is going on in this United States through this administration with Barack Hussein Obama and Eric Holder? This is just so outrageous that they will spend the time and the money and the taxpayers' money to go after North Carolina and Arizona for trying to keep everything legal and above board, but they do nothing to the state of California, say nothing bad about the state of California, for illegally allowing illegal aliens to come in, and literally, it's a way for the Democrats to buy votes. Does this not bother you? Call me, 436-2244, 1-866-927-4587. It's so insane what's going on in this country right now, and we're letting it happen. We are letting it happen. Don't forget a big tire sale. Come on, I want your calls on this. Caller, I'll be right with you. Don't forget, tire sale going on at your Magic Valley Les Schwab Tire Centers. All 7 locations serving you with the best in tires, like for your trucks and SUVs, the Wildcat AT2. Ooh, that's a nice-looking tire. Going to get you right down the road and through all the gunk and the muck this winter. Smooth, quiet riding, starting at just $117.15. And don't forget, for your cars, they've got the passenger car Ultra Z900 on sale with a 30-day ride guarantee. You check it out, along with the best in brake service, shocks and struts, front end alignments, batteries. It's all there for you, with Dave on Blue Lakes and Twin, Mike and Buell, Mike and Jerome, the Twist family and Paul, Lane and Rupert, John on Pole Line in Twin Falls, and Randy, the world's most wild and in favor of the Seahawks fan. I'll tell you what, he's got everything Seahawk over at his office on Overland in Burley. Your Magic Valley Les Schwab Tire Centers. Good morning, caller. You're on the air.
Good morning.
Hi.
I have a good idea.
Oh, boy.
Let's start requiring all of the national people to ride the public airlines, just like the rest of us, including the president, and let's not allow anybody to show ID before they get on the airplane.
You know how far that's going to go. It's going to be like a rock in a bucket of water hitting bottom. Funk, it's not going to work.
Yeah, and you know what? I work in a polling booth in Burley, and actually people come in with ID, but a driver's license really doesn't tell me that you are a citizen.
No, but what's wrong with who you are and proving who you are and taking pride in who you are before you cast a very important vote?
And I'm wondering how long we United States citizens would get away with going down to Mexico and showing up to a vote and say, you've got to let me vote. I don't have ID, but that doesn't matter. You've got to let me vote.
Yeah, Chris, of all the countries in the world, we're supposedly the leader of the free world. We're supposedly the country that everybody looks up to, the beacon on the hill, but we are showing nothing more than idiocy in the way that we're running our country or not running our country. And California, I mean, they're just sticking their chin out, and they're saying to the rest of the United States, we don't care what your policies are on immigration. We're going to legalize illegal aliens, and we're going to buy votes for the Democrats, and we're going to supersede law enforcement. We're going to tell the sheriffs of all these counties down in California what they say doesn't matter, and we're just going to be pugnacious about it and do it our way. And the Department of Justice and Eric Holder don't do anything.
Yeah, I don't understand it, and I can't understand the really wealthy people of California who have really built that state, and there's a lot of really wonderful people that have been instrumental in the building of the state. These people vote in taxes on their employers. They're not going to end up paying them.
Well, look at this whole situation about how the Obama administration has basically thumbed their nose at our Constitution, thumbed their nose at the laws, thumbed their nose at what's right and wrong, and they're going to do it their way. Obama is not a unifier. Obama is, I think, the greatest divider with divisionary tactics that have separated the classes, if you will, in this country. I don't think we'll ever get it back, thanks to this man that absolutely has been the worst president ever in the history of the United States.
Well, I agree with you that I think he was the candidate to divide, and that's what they want him to do, is to, not let Americans stand together and be proud and support our country. They're getting enough dividers in that you don't know who you want to stand by anymore, because it's really frightening.
All right, now let's go to this deal here with the shutdown. What do you've been around politics and studied it for a long time, what do you think is going to happen if tonight by midnight they don't reach an agreement?
I think it's going to be just fine. I think that Americans have got to figure out, are we going to draw a line in the sand, or are we going to just continue down this path to the total destruction? Rome fell under the weight of their bills.
Yeah, it's a good thing that Obama's not a fiddle player and he's just got a set of golf clubs.
Well, are we sure about that?
Yeah.
I think he cheats out on that.
Chris, thanks for your call.
Anyway, I think today he's having to spend the day with one of the people he loves the most. What's his name?
Mr. Benjamin Netanyahu of Israel is going to be, this is going to be really interesting because Netanyahu doesn't like Obama. Netanyahu is very concerned about Iran. Obama's been talking more to the president of Iran than he's talked lately to Israel and kept them informed and in the loop of what's going on over in the Middle East. This is going to make a lot of news as to what Netanyahu has to say after he visits with Obama.
Well, I hope that the reason he's meeting with him is not that the shutdown will get media and they'll not ever report on what goes on.
Yeah, we'll find out later on.
Get a report.
All right, Chris, God bless you. Thank you for your call. Thank you.
Bye-bye.
Hey, when you think about life insurance, health insurance, retirement planning, and employee benefits, always think about Cameron and Siemens Insurance. Dean Cameron, Todd Siemens, very, very dedicated and responsive to your needs. And they're devoted to serving you and your families and your business. So please contact them today, 436-4424. Cameron and Siemens Insurance, Highway 24 in Rupert, serving you. Still have time for another phone call. Give me a jingle on the landline, if you would, please. Thank you, caller. Good morning. You're on the air.
Good morning, Zeb. I'm going to take a very hard-line approach to this and say, we need to draw a line and say to the president, you can't push us anymore. This far, no farther. And then we start pushing back.
Well, the American public should have. It's amazing to me. It is amazing to me that many of the Democrats that are well known, whether it's in the newspaper business or the radio and television business or whatever, some of the Hollywood set, all of a sudden they're going, well, this man's not doing the job, et cetera, and they're acting like this is something new. We have been preaching this since Obama was an Illinois senator, that the man is classless, the man has not any ability to lead, he doesn't have the knowledge, he's an amateur when it comes to anything in world events. This man is absolutely the worst thing that's ever happened to America.
Exactly. It's just like Stalin, our president, you know?
Well, Rodney, by the way, Rodney, I want to wish you on Wednesday a very happy birthday if I don't get a chance to talk to you. Happy birthday on Wednesday.
Yeah, I wish I could have been at the lunch bunch, but I was stuck here.
All right, well, listen, next time, buddy. Next time. Thank you for your call.
Yeah, think about me next time you have some fries. I might have hot potatoes for you.
All right, buddy. Thank you so much. Appreciate it, Rodney. Thank you. Nice young man right there. And he was working, couldn't make it to lunch bunch the other day, and I felt sorry for him. He really supports that. We're going to take a little break, and then we're going to come back, and we have Phil Valentine on with a brand new book, and it's called, hold on a second, I got it right here, An Inconsistent Truth, and he really hammers Al Gore and the environmentalists that are trying to preach global warming to us. Don't go away, that's coming up next half hour. I think I've got fly elbow from using that fly swatter for the last half hour. Holy smokes, these pesky little varmints are all over the studio this morning. Welcome back. Hour number 2, Zeb at the Ranch, and we want to say thank you to our major sponsor, your Magic Valley Les Schwab Tire Centers, all 7 locations serving you, along with our friends at Lee's Furniture, Floors, and more. And don't forget, they're going to be donating a painting that we're going to be giving away later this week on behalf of our cow pies and coffee cups. Don't forget that. Get your name in there and get signed up. And then also our friends at Western Waste Services.
From the canyons of the Snake River and all across southern Idaho, we're always at your disposal. Western Waste Services, we care about our community, our resources, and this great land. Western Waste Services is lending a hand, always at your disposal. Western Waste Services.
Oh my, are you cleaning up and you're getting ready for fall? You need to make room here. You're going to be digging out the Christmas ornaments before too long. Yeah, that's true. And you maybe all looked at the garage and you said, holy buckets, this thing is filthy. Well, why don't you get a dumpster? They've got dumpsters at Western Waste in various sizes, and they'll drop one off and you can have it, fill it up, and then call them when it's ready to go. That's right. Always at your convenience, always at your disposal. And don't forget, they got the porta potties and the best in gathering up your garbage every week on the route service. Holy smokes, call them today, 734-6969. Always at your disposal, Western Waste Services. Also, before we get our guest on the air, excuse me for choking. I've been working up a sweat here trying to kill all these flies. Holy smokes. Hanson Mortuary, and by the way, our thanks go out. Joel Heward, Joel, thank you, was at our lunch bunch last Thursday. Really, really do appreciate it. Owner-manager of Hanson Mortuary, 710 6th Street in Rupert. and always upholding the highest ethical standards with unquestioned integrity of serving you and your families. When you have a loved one passing away in the family, it's a very, very traumatic time, and you got to really sit down and try to analyze what to do, how short a time you have to do it in, dot the I's, cross the T's. Well, let them help. Hanson Mortuary, 710 6th Street in Rupert. Number to call, 436-5636. Well, we're going to go to the phone line right now and say good morning to a gentleman that, needless to say, I can't wait to hear more about a new movie that the government, Obama, and everybody else doesn't want you to see, and it's called An Inconsistent Truth. And boy, I certainly hope he's mailed a copy to Al Gore. Good morning to Mr. Phil Valentine. Good morning, sir. How are you?
Doing fine, Zeb. How about you?
Not too bad. Now, I got to tell you the truth, Phil. I just got the cassette mailed to me, and I haven't had a chance to look at it in its entirety, but wow, Inconsistent Truth, all about global warming and the great big myth about global warming. I am so glad you made this film, but I'm going to ask you this. Do you think that we're going to change people's hearts and minds?
I think so, and I think the tide is starting to turn. You see the IPCC out this week. Of course, they are doubling down on this whole notion that we as humans are destroying the planet. Well, they really don't have any evidence out there, and the problem is the temperature is not cooperating with them. The temperature has been flat for 10 to 15 years, and they fail to explain that. What I've found interesting about their report, which they released, and by the way, that's the policymakers' report, that's not the scientific report. In the scientific report, when you dig down into that, you'll find all sorts of skeptics in the scientific community. They've tried to wash those out. One of the scientists we talked to in our movie is Dr. John Christie, who was the lead author of the IPCC, who doesn't believe any of this book. But what I find interesting is they say, well, 10 to 15 years, that's not enough data to go on. But they turn around and say, we believe that man has been causing global warming since the 1950s. Well, if they think the 1950s, they're talking about a period of time of 50 or 60 years, and they think 15 years out of 50 years is not significant. I think it's absolutely significant in that their climate models were all wrong. 73 climate models that said the temperature by this time was going to be 2 to 3 degrees warmer than it is, and it's just not. So nothing they have said, polar bears aren't dying, the sea levels aren't rising, none of this stuff is coming true.
You know, Phil, you put a lot of time and effort into this, and I'm sure it wasn't something that all of a sudden over a cup of coffee a couple of months ago you got this idea and this whim to put together this great video and this great movie. All the science that you've looked up and all the people you've talked to, and I've said on this program for years that I thought it was a big hoax perpetrated by government to have more control over their people, that being the United States of America, and I think you agree with me.
Yeah, as a matter of fact, if the people that watch the movie will see that's one of the conclusions we come to. It's all about, and scientists and policymakers, politicians will all say the same thing. It's about control. They want to control your life. They want to tell you what to do. A lot of times they say, well, the conservatives want to tell us what to do in our bedroom. Well, the liberals want to tell us what to do in every other room in the house. They want to tell us what kind of dishwasher to have in the kitchen, what kind of washing machine in the washroom, what kind of light bulbs in the living room, what kind of car in the garage. So these folks are obsessed with controlling our behavior. And these smart meters they got coming out will be able to determine what appliances you're using they don't want you to use and just shut them off.
Now, Phil, that being said, now I'm going to pin you down on a couple of points here that I really think we should tell the audience. What can we do? I mean, you talk about control, you talk about the pricing, you talk about our power companies with all the little units that are going to come right to the nth degree as far as saying what you're doing, what you're causing as far as global warming, and we're going to shut you down, we're going to tax you more for this. What can we do? I think the general public feels like they're already with their hands in a handcuff.
Well, that is a good question. We got to get good people in office that understand this issue and many other issues, as you well know, because you talk about them on a day-to-day basis, as I do. It's just a matter of getting the right people involved. But one of the things that I think that we need to do is embolden enough people to use common sense. I mean, it's obvious that CO2 is not a pollutant. And that's what I'm hoping this movie is going to do, is give enough people cover politicians, scientists, and regular people to now start coming out and saying, yeah, I mean, come on, folks, this is crazy. What has happened before is Al Gore and these folks have bullied and intimidated the people on the other side to the point where they have made people believe that these people are kooks, that they're conspiracy nuts, that they believe that we didn't land on the moon, or that there was no Holocaust and the rest of it. When the fact of the matter is that these people are very learned scientists. Dr. Fred Singer is one of the smartest scientists in the world. He doesn't believe it. You got the lead scientist on the Aqua satellite from NASA, which we interview in the movie, Dr. Roy Spencer, who this satellite checks temperature data on a continuous basis around the globe. That's where we get all the satellite data from. He doesn't believe it. So if there are more people that understand that very learned people have come to a very different conclusion than Al Gore, there'll be more cover for people to come out, and I'm hoping that, the more people that see this movie, the more that we'll have that happen.
Phil, when you did the research for this film, and as I said, I'm going to have you back on after I've had a chance to analyze everything and take a good hard look at it, because I want to be more than fair to you in getting you back for more of an answer on this. But without having seen everything and studied everything, I would submit to you that we've got a real problem in our school system, from the elementary, even from the kindergarten, elementary, high school, and college, that they've been duped into accepting global warming, and our younger generations, they aren't going to listen to common sense. Would you agree or disagree?
I would absolutely agree, and the problem, and that's what we're trying to get this into schools. Matter of fact, I got two kids at the University of Tennessee, and one's a freshman. The older one transferred, so he didn't have to go through this, but the incoming freshmen have to read a book called Earth. It's a Earth with two A's. I'm not sure what that's supposed to mean, but it's by a guy who believes that we've already destroyed the planet because of global warming, and now we have to minimize everything. We have to be, I don't know, go back to the Stone Age or whatever. You're supposed to stop driving your cars and stop doing this. It's just a crazy point of view. Not only do they have to read the book, they had to write a report on it, and their first semester they have to take a course on it, and this guy came in and actually spoke to the class, or to all the students. I'm on a crusade this fall to get this movie into as many universities across America as I possibly can. I'll come to the universities that want me to. We'll do a panel discussion. They can rack it up with as many people on the other side, because they do not have the facts on their side. They cannot make this wash in an argument. That's why Al Gore won't debate anybody over it.
Okay, now you've talked to all the naysayers, and you've talked to all the people that are absolutely on your side that it is an inconsistent truth, and really science isn't always on Al Gore's side or others. For what purpose do they want to destroy us, the taxpayers? For what purpose would they have us live back in caves and burn buffalo dung and wear clothing made out of elm tree leaves? I mean, for what purpose, Phil?
Well, there are a variety of reasons. There's some people, very well-meaning people, they really do believe we're destroying the planet, and that's the only way to save it is for us to get rid of the way we live. But many of these folks, quite frankly, are anti-capitalist, and I've often said that if capitalism and America are joined at the hip. This is a capitalist nation. If you're anti-capitalist, you're anti-American by very nature. But these people want to destroy capitalism, and they want to take the money that the capitalist producing nations have acquired over the years and redistribute that to the folks who haven't been able to produce because they haven't had capitalism and they haven't had a republic like we have. So there are a variety of reasons. Then you've got the people like Al Gore and Rajendra Pachauri, who is the head science, or the head guy, but he's not a scientist with the IPCC. His doctorate is Dr. Rajendra Pachauri. His doctorate is actually in economics. These folks stand to make millions, if not billions, off this issue, and Al Gore already has. Al Gore left the White House worth less than $2 million. He's worth well over, closing in on $200 million right now, and sold his TV network to the biggest oil-producing country on the planet, Qatar, and then condemns anybody who has anything to do with big oil. It's just absolutely ridiculous. It is the ultimate hypocrisy on his part.
You know, as you go around the country and you're promoting now this inconsistent truth, what about you? What about your movie? Have they tried to mock you? Have they tried to denigrate you? Have they tried to cheapen what you've done as far as your product for truth? What have they done to you?
Well, what they have done, and Al Gore will not, of course, he will not acknowledge it directly because I think that if he felt if he did that, he called too much attention to it. But yes, this is the same old stuff. I mean, they, Valentine is in the hip pocket of big oil. He's what this, that. That's why I went out of my way to make sure that every dime that went in this money came out of my own pocket. I didn't get anybody to invest. I had actually, the coal industry wanted to invest in it, and I said, I can't do that. Not that I don't like the coal industry, it's just that when you do that, they use that as leverage to destroy you and destroy your credibility. So no money came from any big oil entity or anybody associated. All of it came from me, and I wanted to keep it that way. While at the same time, Al Gore's taking $70 million from Qatar.
Mm-hmm. Now, let me ask you this. How big do you want this to be? I mean, do you see chances and opportunities that maybe this film has already won the Best Documentary, Nevada Film Festival, Winner of Excellence in Filmmaking, Anthem Film Festival, runner-up Best Documentary, Appalachian Film Festival. How big do you want this film to get and or be? Do you think there's chances that somebody on a network might pick it up and show it in prime time?
Well, I would hope, but a lot of these folks are down for the struggle with Al Gore, and the rest of these folks, they don't want this kind of stuff out. I'm hoping that that's going to be the case, but look, if it's not, I'm satisfied with the grassroots, everybody getting the movie, everybody sharing it with their neighbors, and if I can just get into some of these schools and show the other side, we need to be teaching kids to make up their own minds based on all of the facts, not based on half of it. But they want to tell these kids that the science is settled. You don't need to hear the other side. As one of our scientists said in the movie, he said that's like declaring victory in a war. You just declare victory and you walk off and act like you won. We have got to allow our kids to see everything and to make their decisions based on all the information.
All right, we've got a caller with a question for you, Phil. Stand by. Caller, quickly. Go ahead, please.
Yes, I know for a fact that Common Core is encouraging this type of environmental thinking and plus open-minded sexual thinking, but I just didn't. I'll let you comment. Thanks.
All right. What about that with the Common Core thinking in the schools now being pushed by the federal government and it's one size fits all, and you take this, you assume that global warming is absolutely correct thanks to the Obama administration, etc. What about being possibly a deviation from what their program and their vendetta is into the truth? Do you think that'll ever happen?
You're talking about getting this in there?
Absolutely, as part of the curriculum, yes.
Well, that's what I would love if they would actually show the other side. But a lot of these folks have been bamboozled and bullied into believing that there's only one side. A lot of these people, I mean, I've talked to them. Matter of fact, the professor at UT that my kids are taking this class from, excuse me, when they asked him about this, he sort of, he just said, well, I mean, the science is settled, isn't it? I mean, he's just, he's been bombarded by this other side so long, he just assumes it's true. There are a lot of people who are useful idiots, as the Soviets used to refer to some of the people in this country. Some people are just useful idiots without the useful part. But there are a lot of folks who are involved in this issue who are just going along to get along, and they need to understand that they, too, have been duped by this. And I think if we can get to some of those folks in the education system, they'll say, hey, wait a minute, there's a lot more to this subject than we had originally thought. We need to show both sides.
Phil, when you went through and you talked about Alaska and the decade-long cool down, and when you went through about the polar bears not dying off, and when you went through about people like, I'll even mention another name that I know is against global warming, and he's bringing this out every time he's on television, Joe Bastardi, the Weather Channel. There are so many people that are saying, wait a minute, this global warming is nothing more than a monetary hoax to get control of the people. If we do nothing, and we sit back and just absorb what the government's telling us like a sponge, how bad in a very near future do you think it will get?
Well, the problem with all of this is they want to essentially destroy the economy that we have now. They want to transition from fossil fuel to green energy, and there's just not enough of the green energy to go around. I have no problem with green energy. I think it's a wonderful thing. In an idyllic world, if we could run everything off solar panels and windmills, that would be a wonderful thing. But we just can't. So they're going to force us to do this before our economy is ready. And I think that's a dangerous thing. I mean, when we start transitioning towards a green economy, we got to have something to transition to. And right now, as we've seen, a lot of this stuff is just going out of business. I mean, we've seen, as far as Solyndra and Fisker Automobile, which, by the way, Al Gore was involved in that and heavily invested in that. They got $529 million from the government in loan guarantees. Time after time, the government invests in these different companies that were not tested in the private sector, in the free market, and they failed. We need to allow this to happen naturally in the free market, and I think eventually it will, but we're not there yet. They want to hurry the process up, get us completely off fossil fuels. The problem is, if Citigroup did a study not long ago, they said that if we were to tap into the Bakkens and the rest of the area that we have, offshore oil and the rest, we could be energy independent in 5 years.
Absolutely.
And the people, the greenies, hate that. But when you look at the reality of it, if you destroy the economy, you're going to destroy any research and development for green energy at the same time. They don't understand that because they don't like the capitalist system. But you've got to have capitalism to even develop the green energy.
Absolutely.
So if you destroy the fossil fuel in the oil industry, we're going to eventually destroy the green energy, too, because there'll be no money left to invest in it.
Absolutely. Phil, we've got time for another caller. Real quick, caller, go ahead, please.
Yeah, the only investment will be the fact that our tax money will keep putting good money after bad down to all of these solar panel groups and so forth and so forth. But the whole global warming hoax is being used as the poster child for the Agenda 21 of the United Nations, and that's the whole deal. And they tend to ruin our economy so that we can become part of the global community under United Nations control. That's what it's all about, to control everything on the planet with the global warming hoax. Right now, ice is building up at a fantastic rate in the Arctic. I think we're going to have a pretty dead burn cold winter. And they're lying to their teeth about the polar bears and everything else.
All right.
We need to expose that.
All right. Thank you very much, caller. Phil, your response, please.
Well, Agenda 21 is something that we absolutely need to be very concerned about, and the caller is right. I mean, when we look at the overall scheme of things, what the plan is, and the plan is to essentially socialize the world, or worse, by making everybody even. And the way you do this is you take the money from the producer nations, with the producer nations primarily coming from the energy sources, because that's just the way it is. So you look at these third world nations where they want to redistribute the money, but they do not want them to develop. Another thing that's very scary, and I'm not saying that all of the people in the environmental movement are like this, but many of them are for population control, and that's why they don't want to let third world countries develop, because if they develop, they'll save more lives, and they think that we are a virus on the planet. That the more of us, the worse. So Agenda 21 is absolutely something to be terrified about.
Phil, last part of the question, short answer on this, I'm almost out of time, but when we hear this perpetration of green energy, the cancerous wind turbines on the landscape, and of course the solar panels and all this, I can imagine that our enemies like Russia, China, and India, they're all sitting back smiling saying, yeah, you go get them, United States, we'll take all the energy and just watch you deplete your power and resources for the rest of the world. Isn't that what they're going to think?
Well, absolutely. And wouldn't they? Why wouldn't they? They would certainly think that. I mean, Russia is hoping that we don't develop more of our natural gas and more of our oil, because we're competing with them. If we were to bring oil prices or gas prices in the United States down to $1 a gallon, Russia would be in big trouble, because that's the main source of their income. So, yeah, absolutely, they want us to go down this route, because they'd love to see us go down the route of ruin.
All right, now,
that's where we're going. Let
me ask you this, Phil. Where can people obtain a copy of this film? Where can they see the film? Tell us all about that so I can get people to be more aware.
Well, they can buy it at Amazon.com. It's an Inconsistent Truth, or they can go to the website, AnInConsistentTruth.com, where they can purchase it there or learn more about the movie and see the scientists that we have involved and see how we made the movie. But I just encourage people to get this and get educated and let people know what the truth is, so that we can give cover to more people to come out of the closet on this. Scientists and politicians alike to say, hey, I'm not afraid to say that Al Gore is lying to the world, and I'm not afraid to say that all this is bunk.
Absolutely. Ladies and gentlemen, An Inconsistent Truth, the movie the left, don't want you to see. And the producer, Phil Valentine, thank you for being on the program. And Phil, I'm going to be calling you in the next couple of weeks for a rematch, if you will, on this program, and we'll talk more about it. Best of luck, and I'll keep plugging it on my show.
Thank you, sir. I appreciate it.
All right, sir. Have a good day. Phil Valentine, and the movie, like I said, the left doesn't want you to see, An Inconsistent Truth. And I can't wait to peruse the whole thing in its entirety and have him back on the air.
I can post a link up to that on your Facebook.
Thank you, Gene. I was going to ask you to do that. I appreciate that very much. Don't forget Burley Glass, 1029 Overland Avenue in Burley, with our friend Gentle Ben, and the Atrium Windows, and they can increase the energy efficiency of your home by at least 2 to 3 times. Why are you letting all the heat go outside when you can keep it inside? Oh my goodness, that's why tight windows are essential. Talk to them today. Burley Glass, 1029 Overland in Burley. Call Gentle Ben and the staff, 678-1459. Really nice people. Hey, starting on Wednesday, it's going to be Scow's CarQuest Auto and Truck Parts, and they're going to be talking about all your driving questions. If you've got automobile and pickup and truck questions about, hey, what about this, what about that, how do I take care of that, they'll answer them with our dear friend Jeff Poole. And at the same time, we also want to acknowledge, of course, our great friends at Scow's CarQuest Centers in Rupert, Hayburn, and Burley. Doggone, they're the best. You be sure and be listening coming up on Wednesday for the Scow's CarQuest show. Okay? Got you covered on that. Let's see, that's coming up. And then, as I look down my list of things to take care of here this morning, I want to remind you about our friends at Lee's Furniture, Floors, and More. Now, you've heard me already talk many times this morning about them being one of our gift providers for the Cow Pies and Coffee Cups, and this week on Thursday, we're going to be giving away a beautiful painting to one of our subscribers to Cow Pies and Coffee Cups from, and compliments from, Lee's Furniture, Floors, and More at 459 Overland in Burley. Don't forget, of course, the great, big, beautiful, absolutely toughest carpet I've ever seen in my life, Smart Strand Carpet. They've got it at Lee's Furniture, Floors, and More. Talk about kid-proof, rhino-proof, and splits-proof. They gave us, like you probably are aware, a great big 10 by 12 piece of that Smart Strand carpet, and I put it out in the corral with Splits, one of my roping horses, and he lived on it for over a month. They cleaned it, and it looked and was brand spanking new. Check it out for your home, Smart Strand Carpet at Lee's Furniture, Floors, and More, 459 Overland in Burley. Really, really good people. Okay, now we're just about ready to have our next guest on the program, and that's going to be Matt Sharp, and we're going to have him on momentarily, so stand by. But I also want to remind you about Ramsey Heating and Electric offering rebates on qualified Lennox home comfort systems. Whether it's a gas furnace, air conditioner, or heat pump, you and your family will always enjoy the comfort. Call 678-0459 and learn how Ramsey Heating and Electric can save you money. That number again, 678-0459. At Ramsey's, they sell warm winters and cool summers, as they have for over 53 years. Ladies and gentlemen, right now it's time to go to the phone lines, and we have with us, with the Alliance Defending Freedom Legal Counsel, Matt Sharp. Matt, good morning to you. How are you?
I'm doing great. Thanks for having me, Zeb.
Well, it's always a pleasure to have you on the air. And talking about our freedoms, or how some people are trying to take away our religious freedoms. And the story we're going to be talking about this week, we've had on the program at times in the past, and it's called the See You at the Poll event. What does that mean exactly?
Yeah, See You at the Poll is a great student-led event that's been going on for several years now, and it's basically a time when students, community members, parents gather around the flagpole at their local school before the start of the school day to pray for their schools, to pray for the safety of everyone there, to pray for the teachers, the staff, for God to bless and prosper the school. And so it's a great time for these people to come together, to call out to God for help, and to continue in one of these the great American traditions of seeking God's blessing and help in all of our endeavors. And so it started from a group of teenagers that got together at a school in Texas, and has now spread to an international movement where students from all over the U.S., all over the world gathered together this past Wednesday, September 25th, to pray for God's prayer and protection around the flagpole.
Now, Matt, there have been circumstances and instances where school officials, because of their ignorance as to what is constitutional and what isn't, they've gone out and tried to break this thing up, and really, if it's not bothering any class time, they have no business sticking their nose into this, do they?
That's exactly right. You know, you think of what happens before school. You've got parents dropping their kids off. The kids are hanging around at front. They're talking with their friends. We've seen instances where they're, practicing their musical instruments for a performance at the football game that night. So there's a lot going on around the school grounds at the start of the school day. And so for a group of students to say, we want to use our time not to talk about, the latest teen song on the radio or some other nonsense, but we want to gather around the flagpole and we want to pray together and we want to sing and we want to worship God. And the law says they've got the right to do that. Just like you said, as long as they're not interfering with instructional time, which obviously doesn't happen here because it's before the start of the school day, they've got the right to do this. Just like other students have the right to talk and play their instruments or whatever, these students have the right to gather together to pray and worship God around the flagpole. And in doing so, I think set a great example for what all of these students at their school should be engaging in, which is seeking and praising God.
Matt, what about the left and the people that are just absolutely doing all they can to stop this? Are they saying, oh, no, they can't do that on school property, separation of church and state? How do you answer that?
Yeah, it's simple. There is no so-called separation of church and state when it comes to the rights of students. Students have well-established constitutional rights to share their faith at school. It all started years ago with this Tinker case at the Supreme Court with some students protesting the Vietnam War. It was unpopular, it was contentious, it caused controversy, and the court said they've got the right to do it. They've got the right to share their views and viewpoints, to express themselves, and that applies just as true for Christian students that want to share their faith, that want to pray together. And so we see this pop up all the time where school officials and those that are antagonistic towards Christianity will say, oh, you can't do that at school. Religion has no place in school. It needs to be kept at home. It needs to be kept in your church on Sundays. You keep it off the school grounds. And fortunately, the Supreme Court and our Constitution say otherwise. It says that students have the right to share their faith at school, to pray together during free time, to bring Bibles, to bring invitations to religious events, and yes, to gather around the flagpole and pray. So my response is there is this so-called separation of church and state. It doesn't exist when it comes to students. They've got an absolute right to do this. They're not forcing their religion on anybody. It's just students who share a common faith in Jesus Christ gathering together to express that faith, to glorify God, and to pray for His divine guidance and protection.
Okay, here's the but most school leaders, most teachers, most principals, most school boards, most superintendents are unaware and are ignorant as to what the rights and the law and the Constitution really says, and so they try to act in a shutdown mode. Why is that? Is there not proper training? Is there not a kind of a textbook or a handbook that they can read? Why are they so ill-informed?
Yeah, I think it's a mix of ignorance, and I think it's a mix of hostility. And let me give a perfect example of the ignorance. A little over a week and a half ago, we got a call from a student up in Long Island that was a middle school student, very excited about Jesus Christ, and was wanting to hold CU at the pole at his school. And the school's response is, well, we probably can't stop you from having CU at the pole, but we're not going to allow you to advertise it or promote it in any way. You can't hand out flyers. You can't hand them out anytime. Before or after school, you cannot tell anyone about this on school property. And so this was one where we'd had some dealings with this school district before. We called up their attorney. We said, hey, you're violating the law, and you need to make sure that these school officials know they're violating the law and that there's consequences for that. And so that was when there was ignorance. And so as soon as the school officials got the proper education that they needed on all of this, the student was allowed to hold the event, allowed to pass out flyers for it and promote it. But there's other circumstances where it's outright hostility, where we see school officials that will point to a written policy that says, nothing religious is allowed on campus. No one can share their faith or anything like that. And we see circumstances like that where it's not an ignorance, it's an outright hostility towards Christianity and towards students expressing their faith on school. And so in those circumstances, sometimes they respond to a little education, and sometimes it takes a court order telling them that they have to allow that. But it's important for all students and parents and those interested in participating to this to be willing to be the ones to take a stand.
Yeah.
Be willing to be the ones to stand up and say, this is wrong, this is unconstitutional, you're violating our rights, and there's consequences for doing that. You can either do the right thing and follow the law, or we can end up with a court order telling you that you have to do it. And so it's so important to do this because we don't know what God may use and how he may impact a student's life or impact a school through events like this.
Absolutely. You know, Matt, when I think back, and you and I have talked about this in the past, and I think back to my elementary school days and our Christmas programs, we put on little skits, humorous skits, and then, of course, some were very, very serious, and they were revolved around, of course, Christ's birth and Bethlehem, etc., and Mary and Joseph, and our singing, of course, Hark the Herald Angels Sing, and all of this type of thing. Why did this change? Why did we as a public allow it to change?
You know, I think it started several years ago with those on the left, those that are antagonistic towards Christianity. They had a plan, and their plan was to drive Christianity, drive God out of schools, and to replace it with their own secularism. And they've been effective at it. And it's largely been because Christians, for many years, didn't stand up. When they were challenging prayer in school, when they were challenging starting the day with reading a psalm, Christians didn't stand up. And slowly our rights were eroded. We've got case after case where the court said, well, you can't do this and you can't do that. And I think we as the Christian community, and even those outside of it, are starting to see the damage being done by this. I mean, we're seeing schools that are performing worse than ever, student behavior is worse than ever, violence, drugs, suicide, bullying, all of this stuff going on. And I don't think it's any coincidence that the more we've kicked God out of schools, the more the world and the enemy has come in to fill the void left. And I think that's why it's so important for us to take a stand, because the other side has a strategy. They're playing the long game. They are working day in and day out to drive God out of schools. And we've got to realize that this is not a local battle. This is a national battle that's going on. And we've got to get smart and organized and push back and be as stubborn and as strong-headed and as devoted to our cause as they are. To help restore how things ought to be.
I agree totally with everything you said. And that being said, we're coming into, and it's inching closer every day, to Christmas season. And I'm very concerned, Matt, that we're going to see much more of the same, if not more and more vociferous movements try to stymie and stop Christmas. I've read stories to where people want to try to stop, even on private property, people putting up nativity scenes. I've heard about trying to stop the lights. I've heard everything. What do we do? I mean, my audience, I think, is a very conservative and an audience that will stand up and fight at the drop of a hat. You don't want to mess with my audience. And for somebody to say that we're going to stop this, we're going to demand that you don't do this, I'm going to guarantee you there's going to be some white knuckles and there might be some swings, because I hate to sound very militaristic about this, but don't tell my audience that they can't celebrate the birth of Jesus Christ by having a nativity scene on their property or lights celebrating Christmas, or even like this, not being able to mention God's word around a flagpole at the school. People are outraged over this.
Yeah, they absolutely are, and they have every right to be. I mean, Christmas is about Christ. You can't take the Christ out of Christmas. And that's what so many are seeking to do, is to make it into this secular winter solstice holiday and remove any reference to it. And so they started, again, we got to look at the big strategy here. They started in the schools. You train up a generation that questions that is comfortable with taking Christ out of Christmas, and then eventually they're adults and they're having kids. And so now they've taken that ideology with them into the community, and so they're starting to complain about displays at, the city hall and courthouse, and the next thing you know, it's going to be neighborhoods, and saying, oh, you can't display, the nativity scene in your own house. You can't display it out on your lawn. You can't display it out in front of a church. That's offensive to the people driving by. You want to display it, you do it around your own fireplace. You do it around the church pulpit, but you don't put it out in the public for people to see. And this is the mentality that we're doing. And you know what? We're a little late to the battle, but it's not over yet. We can still fight. We can still win. We were just talking about this the other day around the office of so many great court cases that have talked about the right of schools to include religious Christmas songs. There was one that dealt with a student that had some objections to it, and the school did the right thing. They said, hey, if you've got objections to singing these religious Christmas songs, you can opt out of it. There's no consequences. You're not going to be punished. You're not going to receive a worse grade. And so if you feel comfortable, you don't have to. But we're not going to subject and penalize everyone else by telling them they can't sing these songs just because one person's offended by it. And that's exactly how it should be, is that when you've got a vast majority of people that want to celebrate Christmas, that want to acknowledge its Christian origins and its meaning of celebrating the birth of Christ, those shouldn't cave in to the demands of a small minority that want to see it purged of any religious content and secularized into this amorphous, boring, meaningless winter celebration. Christmas has no meaning apart from Christ.
Absolutely.
And we ought to embrace and celebrate that and be willing to stand and defend it.
Matt, anytime, and I'm serious about this, I'm a very pugnacious, very arbitrary, I love to get in the middle of a fray if I think somebody's rights have been stepped on. And right now I think Christian rights have been stepped on. Anytime you get something like this and you need assistance or help from any talk shows or anybody in the media, you better put my name at the top of the list, because I will stand there with you over anything like this, because I'm absolutely sick and tired of the secular world trying to demonize and absolutely diminish my value and my religion.
Yeah, that's absolutely right. And we need more people like you, Zeb. We do. I mean, it's the more we talk about this and get it out there, we realize there really is a silent majority, and we need that silent majority to become the vocal majority. We need them to take a stand on this and talk about it, to take what they're hearing on shows like yours on the radio and talk about it with their neighbor, talk about it with their community members, talk about it with school officials. Get the message out there, because when people see that they're not alone, to see that they are part of a majority that wants to acknowledge Christmas and our nation's religious heritage, they're going to be emboldened by it, and then they're going to be getting voted onto school boards so that we've got good Christian school boards that are willing to recognize and uphold these traditions, and on city councils and in government positions, and we got to play the long game as well, and to realize it's not going to happen overnight, but it's going to be a steady course of action where Christians band together and say, hey, we see the direction our country's going, and we know it's the wrong direction. Let's do the right things. Let's influence. Let's push back, and let's restore our nation to what it used to be.
Absolutely. Matt Sharp, tell everybody, please, how they can keep abreast of all these stories and much more through the Alliance Defending Freedom.
Absolutely. We've got a great website, www.alliancedefendingfreedom.org. They can learn more about our cases, how they can support us so that we can continue to do the work we do in defending our religious liberties. If they've got a situation, they can find out how to call us there, 1-800-TEL-ADS. Let us know about any situation they're facing, whether it's their school being told they can't sing a religious Christmas song or participate in See You at the Poll, or anything else where they're seeing their religious liberty rights, their right to celebrate and acknowledge and engage in Christianity being trampled upon, and we're there to help them.
Absolutely. Matt Sharp, legal counsel with the Alliance Defending Freedom, good friend of ours. Thank you so much for being on the show. I look forward to having you back in the future. Thanks, Matt.
Thank you, Zev.
God bless. Thank you. I'm telling you, when I hear stories like this of where they can't have a Christmas pageant, or they can't sing Hark the Herald Angels Sing, they can't sing Silent Night, or they can't have a prayer meeting and vigil at the pole, the flagpole outside the school, they can't pray for the football team, they can't get together and exchange, hey, we're going to have a pancake supper at our church, want to come? They can't. Well, I say they can. I say they can, and the law says they can. And to the administrators and school officials that are trying to stop this and stymie it, You're wrong. You're absolutely wrong. And people need to stand up and literally spit in your eye and get the truth told. I have no time for people that want to take the best things of life and denigrate them and desecrate them. I have no time for uninformed, misguided, uneducated buffoons in education that are trying to stop this because they just don't know. I have no time for those kind of people. It's time for the weather forecast right now, and it's brought to you this hour by Red's Trading Post. And, of course, Red's Trading Post at 203 5th Avenue South in Twin Falls. And they'll give you top dollar on trade-ins for your used guns, and they've got all the new guns, all the accessories, all the ammo right there in historic Old Town Twin Falls, as they have been since 1936. Ryan Horsley and the rest of the crew always serving you at Red's Trading Post, the best in guns and ammunition. And right now, here's Michael Rogers with a weather update.
Well, hello, everyone. Michael Rogers from MichaelRogersWeather.com. Set of a brand spanking new week of me, fall weather, and chance of rain in the forecast today. In fact, we got some weather action. Look for a chance of showers just before lunchtime, and it's going to be breezy, too. You can look for wind gusts sustained at about 25 miles an hour, possibly gusting to about 40. It's going to get breezy today, but otherwise, just a typical fall day. Tonight, clear. Tomorrow, sunny. 68 for the high tomorrow, 68 for the high today. Enjoy the weather. The only weather you got.
There you go, Michael. Brought to you this hour by Red's Trading Post, 203 5th Avenue South in Twin Falls. You stop in and check out all the guns and the ammo at Red's Trading Post in Twin Falls. All right, calls are welcome and appreciated. 436-2244, 1-866-927-4587. I'd like to hear your comments this morning. You know, I was blessed as a youngster growing up in Wisconsin, in a farming community. And I'm not ashamed of it at all. I went to, for 8 grades, a very, very rural country school. It was a single-room schoolhouse for 8 grades, 1st through 8th. I'm proud of it. I had a great education. I had a wonderful teacher. I had a teacher, Mrs. Kiltz, that every year at Christmas time devoted a lot of her time, effort, and her own personal money into helping us put on an outstanding Christmas extravaganza in the school. I can remember the stage that we brought in. I can remember all the curtains that we brought in. I can remember having all the parents there. I can remember singing all the favorite Christmas carols from Rudolph the Red-Nosed Reindeer all the way to Hark the Herald Angels Sing, everything. And then, at the end of the entirety of that service or that program, everyone was handed a candle. We turned the lights off and sang Silent Night. And then everybody trudged out of that one-room schoolhouse in the snow, that famous Wisconsin snow, knee-deep, went to our cars, had to push many of our neighbors out of the snow, out of the drifts that had possibly drifted in around their vehicles before that program was over. And everybody went home, and then we enjoyed a Christmas vacation with our families. But what a great feeling to leave that school with the attitude of togetherness, comradeship, and also serving and respecting what the real meaning of Christmas was, the birth of Jesus Christ. And now today that's denigrated and looked down upon. What happened to us as a society? Calls are welcome, 436-2244, 1-866-927-4587. Don't forget, Let's Ride, where the fun is sold. They're closed on Mondays, but they're open Tuesdays through Saturdays from 9 to 6, located on Highway 24 between Rupert and Burley. And they've got the 2014 snowmobiles coming in. Oh, my goodness, what a great selection. And all the 2014 ATVs are in stock. Great service department, wonderful sales staff. It's all there. It's all there. Where the fun is sold, Let's Ride, Highway 24 between Rupert and Burley. You stop in and see them tomorrow. Really nice people. Oh, and when I talk about nice people, that also leads me to talk about our other sponsor for the Cassia County School Days, and that's, of course, A Child's World at 1308 Overland Avenue in Burley. And you can shop online. Just go to achildsworldinburley.com. Check out all the Cherokee and Dickey scrubs. Sorry about that. Cherokee and Dickey scrubs, all the shoes, all the clothes, all the infant clothing, all the games, all the crafts, puzzles, and much, much more. It is a family store, and we certainly appreciate them co-sponsoring our Cassia County School Days along with Ambulatory Surgery Center, A Child's World, 1308 Overland Avenue in Burley. I'm going to check with Gina. Gina, you went to a real small school district, didn't you, when you were growing up?
Oh, yeah.
All right.
Really
well,
small.
I have nothing but heartfelt memories of that elementary school, Curtis Mill Elementary, out in the middle of nowhere. It was in a very, very out-of-town rural atmosphere, surrounded by farms and woodlands and a lot of deep snow in the wintertime. And I spent 8 years, first grade through 8th grade, in a one-room country schoolhouse, and I still think I had the best education I could have ever had.
You know, and I have, the same kind of fond memories about Elk River. Now, Elk River was a kindergarten through 12th grade school. It was a 3-story school. Absolutely loved it, and, such fond memories. I remember being the girl that I asked all the time if I could be the one to raise the flag. That was the 5th and 6th grade's responsibility, to raise and lower the flag every day.
Yep.
I loved doing that. We said prayer every day. We said the Pledge of Allegiance every day, and there's something to be said about small-town school atmosphere that really does build character.
Well, when I look back and I see and treasure the moments that we had there with all the different families gathering together for our Christmas program and our pageant, and Mrs. Kiltz, you've heard me talk about her 1,000 times. She was so tough in the school. She would not let you do anything in those schools, but I loved her to her dying day. She was a teacher that I respected. I learned so much from that lady, and she was so gracious to let us really project our talents. And when that Christmas pageant, the skits and all the plays and all the poems and all the songs and everything else, man, that was a blessing I'll never forget. And to see our government and those of the secular left try to stop all this, I'm going to fight them tooth and nail.
I hope you do, because I don't want to see this lost. I want my son to have the same kind of America that we grew up in.
But don't let the educators fool you. Don't let the educators act like buffoons because they're unknowledgeable and they are ill-informed. And I'm not saying all of them. I don't want to lump everybody into the same category, but many are ill-informed and unknowledgeable because they choose to be that way.
They choose to be that way. Some of them do. Some of them are so into what they need to be doing for their students that they don't really see what is going on in the larger picture, and so they kind of get lost in the shuffle, and then when it's time for them to make a decision, they're like, what?
Yeah, I agree.
What?
I agree.
We've got a phone call.
All right. I'll take that call in just a minute. Don't forget, we were blessed at Lunch Bunch with a new location, and that was, of course, at Perkins Restaurant and Bakery at 800 North Overland in Burley. Perkins, where they believe in being best buds with your taste buds. The food was fantastic. The service was great. Loved the room. Perkins Restaurant, it is a place to be, a great place to be. I suggest you stop in anytime, all the time, for breakfast, lunch, or dinner at Perkins Restaurant in Bakery in Burley. Really good people. Call her quickly. I'm on the air.
Good morning, Brad.
Yes, sir.
When I was 4 years old, my mother passed away. We were living up in St. Anthony, Idaho. And my father, that was in 1941, and the war had just begun, so my father went to California to work in the shipyards as a welder. And I went to one of those country schools. I stayed there about 3 years. And I started my education there and everything. And when it come to the 2nd grade, there was no one else there, so they put me in the 3rd grade. And then when my dad called for me to come to California to live with him, then they put me back in the 2nd grade. And, but the point is, these country schools are very, very wonderful because you had an individual relationship with your teacher.
Absolutely.
I've seen them all day.
Absolutely. And education-wise, when we went to high school, we found in many results, we were ahead of everybody that had attended, different elementary schools, junior highs, etc. And I thought that we were extremely prepared for higher education. I really do commend Mrs. Kiltz and the school that I attended.
But I do, as I look back on it now, skipping the third grade was a big mistake, because I was thrust into fourth grade and back in California then.
Yeah.
My dad had not remarried yet, and I really, really struggled. Math was my worst subject, and today I still don't relate to math like I should.
I got to run to the news, Keith, but I appreciate it. God bless you, man. I'm running a little bit late. Thank you very much for your call this morning. Ladies and gentlemen, we're going to take a break and have the news come in. We'll be back in 6. Don't forget, we've got Professor Ilya Salmon from George Mason University coming up right after the break. I'll see you in 6. I don't know if Gina could pick it up before, but give me a quick yes or no. Did you hear some of the doggone flies landing on the microphone and buzzing?
Were you slapping them?
Well, I was trying to.
No, I didn't hear it.
I hate these flies. Anyway, good morning and welcome back. Hour number 3. Zeb at the Ranch with our major sponsor, your Magic Valley Les Schwab Tire Centers, all 7 locations serving you, along with our dear friends at some of our advertisers like Lee's Furniture, Floors, and More at 459 Overland in Burley, and our friends at Western Waste Services, always at your disposal. Get on the route service, and don't forget, call them at 734-6969. By the way, too, before we have our guest on the phone, I'd like to remind you Ramsey Heating and Electric can offer rebates, love that word, on qualified Lennox home comfort systems. Whether it's a gas furnace, air conditioner, or a heat pump, you and your family will enjoy the comfort. As a Lennox independent dealer for well over 54 years, they know the climate, they know the equipment you have waiting for you, and they've done all the shopping for you. So call them at 678-0459. Ramsey Heating and Electric, where they provide warm winters and cool summers. Hey, I got a great place for you to go eat today. Don't forget the Chadwick Sports Grill, 139 West Main in Burley. Oh, boy. They've got a luncheon special every day, Monday through Friday, for just $5.95, and a senior citizen dinner special every Monday through Thursday from 4 to 6 p.m., only $5.95. And today they're going to have pasta primavera with garlic toast and soup or salad. Going to be good, pasta primavera, and that's today at the delicious, always great eating Chadwick Sports Grill, 139 West Main in Burley. Well, I've been looking forward to having this gentleman on our program this morning, and he is a George Mason Law School professor, and his name is Ilya Salmon. I hope I said his name correctly. Good morning, sir. How are you today?
Obviously, you did not get my text. I've been frantically calling with voicemail only.
And could we try? I just was given another number that might work as a backup.
Okay.
609.
Oh, hold on. 609.
558. 4727. That is a cell phone, and we'll certainly try and get that.
Okay.
Thank you.
Uh-huh.
I certainly hope he's there, and we'll check that. And Gina, of course, the greatest. This fly is driving me nuts. Anybody else having fly trouble? It seems like the flies are worse this year than ever before. They have just absolutely congregated inside anything warm, and they know it's almost death time to them in the next couple of days. I've never seen anything like it. Calls welcome and appreciated. If we can't get a hold of Mr. Salmon, we'll have to reschedule that and have him back on the air. I really wanted him on this morning for the intent and purpose that tonight at midnight, the stoppage possibly of America's government. And all that serves us will come to a screeching halt because of no funding. And I wanted to talk to him about that and find out his thoughts. And Gina's checking that out for us right now. While we have just a moment, And I'll tell you a little bit about Sportsman's Warehouse. Oh my, they've got everything over there. And when I say everything, I mean all the warm clothing, all the hats, all the caps. They got the Duck Dynasty hats there. I've got to go get a Duck Dynasty hat. And they've got all your guns, all your ammo, all your camo. They've got everything. They've got, of course, the Stealth Camcore scouting camera, and they've got all the Garmin GPS maps. They've got it all. Sleeping bags. It's for whatever the outdoorsman needs. You'll find the best along with friendly experts, quality gear, and down-home attitude at Sportsman's Warehouse, 1940 Bridgeview Boulevard in Twin Falls. You stop in to Sportsman's Warehouse today.
No dice on the phone number. That was his PR person.
Ooh, if you would just keep checking that other number, and we'll do our best. But callers out in the audience, out in Hitterland, give us a call. We've got kind of an open forum right now. I'd like to hear what your thoughts are about any subject this morning. So give me a call, and we'll discuss it with you. A couple of days ago, I guess it's been over a week and a half ago, Deanne and I went up in the hills on our four-wheelers. And I came back and I complained about the trash that we had seen up in the South Hills. And we went up again early Saturday morning. We bundled up in all of our warm clothes, and Deanne got the stoves and everything that we take up there to cook breakfast. And we went back in about 25 miles back up in the hills. And it's bow hunting season. We saw a lot of hunters, but we also saw a lot of trash. I could not believe the trails that were littered with different hamburger stand bags, different wrappers, all the way from the Little Debbie's donuts and all this kind of garbage all over the trails, just strewn out on the ground. Bottles strewn out on the ground.
We have Ilya on the phone.
And we do have our guest with us, and we're going to take that call. But, folks, we've got to stop this on our public lands. It's absolutely not a trash pit. Ladies and gentlemen, as I said earlier, I'm very fortunate to have with us this morning George Mason Law Professor, and that's Ilya Salmon. Good morning, sir. How are you?
How are you? Thank you so much for having me.
Well, it's my pleasure. And first and foremost, did I pronounce your name correctly? Because there's nothing worse than saying someone's name wrong.
Yeah, you got it right. Thank you.
All right. Well, you are the author of a brand new book called Democracy and Political Ignorance. Tell us a little bit about your book, and then we'll go on and talk about Doomsday that supposedly is going to start tonight at midnight. So what about the book, first and foremost?
So the book is about the widespread political ignorance that exists in American society and the problems that it causes. And it turns out that much of the public is often ignorant even of very basic facts about American politics and government. For example, we're talking right now about the future of the federal budget and the government shutdown that might result from the disagreement over it, but most of the public has very little idea of where the federal government spending actually goes. They greatly underestimate the percentage that goes to massive entitlement programs like Medicare and Social Security, which are some of the largest items in the federal budget, while greatly overestimating the percentage that goes to foreign aid. Most people think that's actually a very substantial percentage of the federal budget, even though it's actually much less than, or not much less, but even less perhaps than 1%. So there's also similar ignorance about a great many other issues.
Mr. Salmon, as you look at society today, and I'm going to be very blunt, I'm 66 years old as of this Wednesday. I think that when I was a teenager, back in my high school days, I was much, much more informed as to what world news and world events were at that time, especially with the Cuban Missile Crisis, etc., than what our younger generation is today. When you have man-on-the-street interviews of people 30 and under, and they haven't got a clue who's in office or why, it's a scary scenario for the generation that's going to take over this country. What are your thoughts as a teacher and a professor?
Well, it is true that on average, younger people know less than older people, though of course there's a lot of variation in both groups. It doesn't seem to be true, however, that people know much less today than they knew 50 years ago. The data suggests that the levels of knowledge are about the same, although it must also be said that the levels of knowledge have stagnated even though education levels have gone up. So the average high school graduate today may well know less than the average high school graduate in 1962, and same thing with college graduates. So the problem of political ignorance is not a new one. It's been around for a long time, but it's also been causing problems for a long time.
Wouldn't you agree, though, sir, with your studies, that today we're looking at a volatile relationship anywhere on the globe, whether it's Syria, whether it's Iran, whether it's China, whether it's Russia, or even India, that we need to be much more informed, we need to really know what's going on, and we need to know about worldviews and politics more so today than we did 25, 30 years ago?
It's certainly possible we need to know more than we did 25 or 30 years ago, though obviously there were serious problems back then, too. I do think, however, that one of the difficulties that we have now, even more than in earlier decades, is with the tremendous growth in the scope and complexity of government. It's actually even harder than it was before for much of the public to actually keep up with what government is doing. So, as I argue in the book, if government were smaller and simpler, it would be somewhat easier for voters to have many other commitments to know enough to understand what is going on.
Okay, now, you said two key words right there, smaller and simpler. We are looking at a government that is just like an amoebic cell that's turned cancerous and is going to envelop everybody and everything. It's getting larger every day. This administration wants to spend more and put us up to close to $20 trillion in debt before they say sayonara in 2016. How do we make government smaller and more efficient when it's already grown and grown like it is now?
So there are many different ways that it can be done. I do think, though, that the first step is for more people to realize that we have a serious problem, and that if we want the government that can be understood by the average voter, that we actually do need to start making cuts and simplifications. As to exactly where to do it, I'm not going to lay out a detailed plan right in the next 30 seconds, but there are lots of places that it can be done precisely because it is so bloated. There are many places we can cut without actually cutting anything that's really essential to our well-being.
So, along with that last statement, we can make the cuts that's not going to really affect our well-being. Are you saying, perhaps, and I don't mean to put words in your mouth, sir, but are you saying that maybe if we default tonight at midnight, maybe closing down the government's not such a bad thing?
So, I'm not convinced that a shutdown for a few days, which is perhaps what is most likely to happen, is the kind of thing that will actually lead to significant cuts in government spending in the long run. However, it likely will be the case that if we have a shutdown, there will be some pain here and there, but just like in 1995, nothing truly catastrophic will actually occur.
So what do you think, honestly, Mr. Salomon, what do you think is going to happen? I mean, I'm not trying to have you project into a crystal ball, but let's say that it's not funded tonight. What kind of damage control will we be looking at tomorrow at this same time, or will there be damage control?
Well, if I was a great political prognosticator, I would be a lot wealthier than I actually am. But my guess, like probably a lot of other people's guess, is that if there's a shutdown, it'll continue for a few days or a week or two, and eventually they'll work out a deal because it will become clear, as it did the last time around, who's the political winner from the shutdown and who's the political loser. And the losers will not want to continue at that point, just like in 95, eventually Newt Gingrich and the Republicans, for the most part, gave in to President Clinton because it didn't work out well for them politically. This time, I'm not sure who's going to lose or win politically, but I do think if we have a shutdown, it probably won't last a really long time.
Let me ask you this, and I'm sure other students and other people have asked you this question before, but I had the take, my own personal take the other day, on Senator Ted Cruz standing up in his filibuster. A lot of people criticized him. A lot of people said he was showboating. A lot of people said he was a clown at a circus. A lot of people denigrated him. But you know something? What I took out of that filibuster, sir, was that he was willing to risk his political life and his political career to stand up for his constituents. What were your thoughts?
So I think he truly does believe in his cause, and I think he really does badly want to get rid of Obamacare. My only question would be, is the tactic likely to prove effective? And, you know, at this point, it's not clear. It could turn out that it'll work, but it's just hard to say, because while people who already agree with him, I think, applauded what he did, the real question is, you know, did he succeed in persuading anybody who was perhaps in the middle?
How do we get, and I'm kind of paging through some of the notes that I had about our interview here this morning and about your book, but how do we get people to become more involved and more knowledgeable about what's happening politically in this country?
I think it's really hard to do, because the problem is this: if your only reason to learn about politics is to be a better voter, if you don't actually find it especially interesting for its own sake, the desire to be a better voter is just not very much of an incentive, because the chance that your vote will make a difference in an election is so extremely small, maybe about 1 in 60 million in a presidential election. So on the other hand, most people, they probably spend more time and effort acquiring information when they decide what car or what TV to buy than when they decide who to vote for president. Why is that? It's because the decision over to car or over to TV, they know it will actually make a real difference. And so I think the insight here is that if we want people to make more of their decisions in a fashion where they're more likely to be well informed, we want more of those decisions to be made in the private sector and fewer through the government.
Would you agree that maybe it's either party's fault, the Democrats or the Republicans, for not putting candidates out there for the public to choose from, that they provided more information about their personalities, they provided more information about what their politics and their ideology was, and maybe the American public just thought maybe it was just more of the same? Have both parties taken the blame, or should they take the blame, for not developing more of a personal approach to the voters?
So obviously one can blame the parties for many things, but one thing the two parties are good at is studying public opinion data and figuring out what the public wants. So the reason why the parties put up the candidates they do, and more importantly the platforms they do, is because they've pretty carefully studied what's likely to win elections, and they've essentially given the electorate to a large extent what it wants. The problem is that when the electorate knows very little about government and public policy, what it wants often is incoherent or otherwise seriously problematic. Mm-hmm. So I think the parties, if you like, what they're largely doing is meeting consumer demand. But when it's ill-informed consumers, that's not always a good thing.
One of the things that really scares me every day, sir, is that it seems like we're getting further and further away from the values of our Constitution, the greatest Constitution ever written for any country in the world. And we seem to have politicians, whether it's Barack Obama or others, seem to step on the Constitution, twist it and turn it for their own gain. And it's a document that I don't want to see changed or tromped upon. What are your thoughts about what current politics are doing to try to change or use the Constitution for their own value?
So we could probably do an entire segment just on that, or much more even, but what I would say is that one of the important principles of the original Constitution, or even as amended, is that the powers of government, especially the federal government, were supposed to be kept relatively limited. And over the last 50 to 60 years, or even a little bit more, we haven't completely lost that, but we've lost a lot of it. And one of the negative consequences of that is that government has become so enormously large and complex that much of the public public has very little idea of many of the things that it's doing. And I think it's not going to be easy to roll it back, but over time, if we realize the nature of the problem over time, I think it can be done at least to a significant degree.
You sound, and I don't mean to put words in your mouth, these are just my thoughts, but you sound like a very conservative man by nature with your politics, and the schools today, basically your larger universities, seem to be very liberal and very socialistic. Are you kind of a John the Baptist crying in the wilderness all by yourself, or what are your thoughts on that?
Well, I'm actually not much of a conservative. I'm much more of a libertarian. It's certainly true if by schools you mean universities. Most university academics are on the political left, though there are more libertarians and conservatives than there used to be. But I am in a minority among my fellow academics, but I am trying to proselytize, maybe not as effectively as John the Baptist, but I do what I can.
You know, it's interesting, though, I think you would agree with me that schools, universities, colleges across the country now have a very liberal mindset. Why is that when it basically, a lot of that centers around a revamping or a change away from our Constitution? I think our forefathers, my mom and dad, my grandparents, all the blood, sweat, and tears to keep this country free and a great future for all of us, they should be very concerned about what the young people are being taught today.
So I think with schools, there's a lot of variation. In more conservative parts of the country, there's probably more conservatism in the primary and secondary schools as well. With universities, it is true, with a few exceptions, that they're overwhelmingly left-wing. Why that is a complex question. I would say one reason is that most university professors are intellectuals, and if you're an intellectual and you study things and you engage in logical reasoning for a living, it's intuitive to you, or it becomes intuitive to think that the way we should run a society is to have experts at the center making supposedly rational plans that will control things, that's better in their minds than what they might think is the chaos or the unfairness of the market or civil society. And obviously not all professors feel that way, but it's a powerful intuition for people who are intellectual by nature, and so I think they tend to gravitate in that direction, and often it takes quite a lot to get them out of that mindset.
Okay, now tell me about the book, Democracy and Political Ignorance. Where can my audience find this book?
So there's a number of places, but the easiest is you can go to Amazon.com and get it. There's both a paperback edition and the Kindle edition. It's also available on Barnes & Noble and other websites. And in addition, there is the Stanford University Press website. Stanford University Press is my publisher. But probably the easiest way to get it is just through Amazon or Barnes & Noble or in many local bookstores.
A final thought and final answer here, make it a short answer time-wise. Mr. Salmon, would you say that there's still a lot of hope for this great country, or are we on the downward spiral with your opinion? I mean, where are we in your opinion?
I think we have some serious problems now, but as Adam Smith said, there's a great deal of ruin in a nation, and we do have a lot of resources and a lot of ability to recover if we take the right steps, which I think include rolling back the size and scope of government.
Well said. George Mason Law Professor, and his name is Ilya Salmon, and the book is called Democracy and Political Ignorance. I'm going to read the book. I'm going to get a copy of it and have you back in the future. Thank you, sir, for your time this morning.
Thank you so much for having me.
Thank you, sir. Very interesting and provocative thoughts about shutting down or even minimizing government. And that's from a George Mason Law School professor, Ilya Salmon. And I had to ask him that because most academics today lean towards being very liberal, and his thoughts, you could tell, were very, very conservative by nature. And I'm going to get the book, Democracy and Political Ignorance, and then I'll have him back on the show. Interesting, very interesting. Let's see, what else have I got to do right now? I've got to tell you, Nathan Harris. Yes, the world's best plumber. I'm saying that from my own experience. Nathan Harris, Harris Plumbing NG. For all your plumbing service needs, specializes in water line replacements and drain cleaning, and he has, for the senior citizens, senior discounts. He knows you're on a tight budget. He'll take care of you. 431-8633. 431-8633. Drips, leaks, clogs, everything he can take care of. Water heaters, water softeners, 24/7. You better believe it. I really believe in this man and his knowledge. Nathan Harris, and of course Harris Plumbing NG, 431-8633. We're going to take a little break and then come back and talk about the big mess with Obamacare and the implementation starting tomorrow. So here will be Senator Dean Cameron in just a few minutes.
And now back to Zeb at the Ranch on AM 1230 KBAR. To reach Zeb, call 436-2244 or toll free 1-866-927-4587. And now, here is Zeb Bell.
Thank you very much. Down the home stretch on Zeb at the Ranch for a Monday, the last day of September, the 30th. Hey, don't forget the Drift Inn at 545 F Street in Rupert. Oh, my goodness. They've got delicious, delicious meals. Lunch from 11 a.m. to 5 p.m. Monday through Saturday with daily specials, and dinners starting at 5 p.m. Monday through Saturday with nightly specials. You're going to love it. Banquet facilities, and believe me, a complete bar offering wine, beer, and spirits. Everything is fantastic and delicious at the Drift Inn, 545 F Street in Rupert. You stop over and see them this week. Well, I'm very honored and privileged, and it's just a pleasure to have this man and his knowledge on my program, and I just absolutely appreciate his friendship. Senator Dean Cameron, and good morning to you, sir. How are you?
I'm great, Seb. How are you doing?
Well, I guess the main question today is, tomorrow the enrollment starts for the health exchange. Tomorrow, Obamacare is going to kick in, basically, with all of its 2,900 pages of we don't know what's in it. I'm going to turn it over to you. I don't know what to expect. I don't know what to look for. I don't know what's going to happen. You tell me. You're the expert.
Well, on one hand, there's obviously a lot of concern and contention and issues that could come to play tomorrow, or they may not. I guess it's going to be a little bit of a wait-and-see attitude. The sun will come up tomorrow. Your show will be on tomorrow, and all will be almost well with the world. We're waiting to see how things will work as of tomorrow. Obviously, the exchange will be supposed to be up and running. We'll see if they can handle the volume that may be there. There may not be volume there. There may not. Nobody may access the exchange tomorrow. Although I kind of doubt that. I think some people will, because there's some pretty good incentives for people to do so.
Mm-hmm.
The major part of the act will hit consumers the hardest starting in January. The start of the exchange won't necessarily hit consumers, although certainly the hype and the hyperbole from the media is certainly ginning up a little bit there, and I guess I take exception to some of it because a lot of it is misconstrued or misunderstood as to how it's going to work.
Mm-hmm.
Let me just take for a few minutes, Zeb, and talk about what the impacts will be to consumers.
Okay, good.
If you don't mind.
No, please do.
And talk about how it's going to affect them, but a lot of these impacts will not start really until next year, and I'll try and distinguish between that. So first of all, there's still the mandate that everybody purchase health insurance. Although the federal government has a penalty and basically said we're not going to enforce the penalty at first, that penalty is still potentially there, and by January of 2014, people are supposed to have coverage. And so when they go to file their taxes the following year, they may potentially pay a penalty as they start to be discovered.
Let me ask you a question there, Dean. Dean, if I could interrupt just for a second as you go along, I need to ask you a question, and pardon my rudeness. But there are a lot of people that said, well, I'll tell you what, they're not going to coerce and force me into buying a policy because I think the fines and the penalties would be actually cheaper than buying the policy itself. What are your thoughts on that?
It will be, but that penalty gets larger. And so it depends on also how the federal government decides to pursue that. There's some provisions that would indicate that the federal government will not be going after individuals. They'll be going after businesses to pay their share of the penalties. And there's two penalties for businesses, and then there's penalties for individuals. So let's talk about the individuals at first. The initial penalty is $95 for an adult. So that's per adult. And then $47.50 per child with a maximum of $285 per year. That's the first year. That's 2014. Then it ramps up to $325 per adult, $162.50 per child, for $975 for the family.
Mm-hmm.
And then in 2016, it goes to $695 an adult, $347.50 for a child, to a maximum of $2,085. So you can see that penalty is ramping up. We don't know what the penalty will be beyond 2016, but already at those levels, you're starting to get people's attention.
Now, let me ask you a question there. Is that penalty or penalties accrued over the years, is that administered and forced upon you by the IRS and at an interest rate that they'll put on through the taxes?
We believe, and I think that's an excellent question that we don't know a complete answer to. It's our understanding that it's not an accumulative penalty. It is our understanding that it is administered by the IRS, and that the IRS could withhold additional, or if you were having a refund, for example, they could, and you owed them $285, they could subtract that from the refund.
Mm-hmm.
But it's uncertain as to how aggressive the IRS will be in collecting it from individuals and whether they'll charge interest. Nobody has been able to ascertain that, to my knowledge.
Okay.
So, anyhow, that's the first issue. Now, businesses will also have a penalty, and they'll have a penalty if they're not offering coverage. That penalty starts at about $2,000 per person. They're required to offer coverage to the employee, but not to the spouse or children. There's also a penalty, and by the way, that $2,000 is per person that would qualify in the exchange for federal subsidy, which we believe most Idahoans will qualify for federal subsidy, and I want to talk about that here in a minute. But so if Cameron and Siemens Insurance is not offering benefits to its employees, and the employees go to the exchange and they qualify for subsidy, then we are penalized for every employee that would qualify for the subsidy.
Mm-hmm.
Then there is a penalty to employers if their coverage isn't adequate, and they have all these tests and provisions that you go through that would indicate adequacy or value of the coverage. One of the benefit changes is that under your health care, you will no longer pay for more than $6,350 per person, or $12,700 per family for your out-of-pocket expenses. That includes your deductible and those kinds of things. And of course, they've ramped up the number of provisions and items that are covered under the new plan.
Mm-hmm.
Now, one of the confusing things, and I don't just ramble on, Zeb, so interrupt me anytime, because I could talk forever on this, and And I know we've got a short amount of time.
Well, one of the things I wanted to ask you about, though, and I'm going to go back to the nuts and bolts of this thing, why I hate Obamacare and the way it's been laid out to the American public, it's nothing more, and I can't understand how come Supreme Court Roberts didn't see this or understand this. This is nothing more than forced and coerced taxation with penalties upon the American public, and I still can't see the legality in this.
Yeah, in my opinion, you're absolutely right, and I don't understand the Supreme Court ruling as well. I don't understand the ruling indicating that it's a tax. The bill didn't start in the House, which by Constitution all tax bills have to start in the House. So it's kind of I guess I'm very disappointed, like the rest of, or most of the rest of Americans, that the Supreme Court ruled the way they did.
Mm-hmm.
But nonetheless, that's where we're at today. And we certainly, on one hand, we're certainly doing all we can to fight and push back against Obamacare. On the other hand, we want to make sure that we're providing people with the right kind of information so that they can keep themselves protected and not pay any more money than they absolutely have to the federal government.
Well, let me ask you another question, and again, I appreciate and respect the fact that you realize we've got limited time. I noticed that a major company, a major medical supplier of insurance, pulled out of the exchange here for the state of Idaho. What does that do to the entirety program for the exchange and the benefits you can offer?
Actually, Zeb, it will do nothing. That company's name was Altius, and they did not have a presence in Idaho to begin with. They maybe had a few. They're a Utah company that maybe had a few businesses across the state line, and they have decided not to participate. We still have 4 companies participating in the exchange and 146 plans. So consumers will have a broad choice to go to the exchange. We would encourage consumers to not necessarily just go directly. I think they'll get better benefit, better value if they will work with their local agents.
Mm-hmm.
If they go to somebody who has some experience in the insurance industry, I think they'll save money in the long run, and to be able to pick a better plan.
All right, now
but it's not that. The fact that they pull out will not hurt the exchange.
Okay.
At all.
We've got a caller with a question. Quickly, caller. We're short on time. Go ahead, please.
I've got 2 questions. Number one, what would be about the lowest premium that a couple not working with, very little income coming in, what's about the rate of a package? And why is the state of Idaho, they were going to fight this whole thing, and now they have stopped fighting? And those are my 2 questions, and I'll hang up and listen.
All right. Thank you, caller. Dean, please.
Well, first, I can't answer the first question because the rates are not released and will not be released until tomorrow. If they have very little income, they most likely will qualify for one, if not both, of the subsidy, or there's a subsidy and a cost-sharing reduction. And so a family, for example, a family of 4, if they make less than $58,000 a year, they'll be entitled to what's called a cost-sharing reduction, which helps pay for the deductibles and co-insurance. And if they make less than $94,000, a family of 4, so husband and wife and 2 kids, if they make less than $94,000, they will be entitled to some level of premium tax credit, which means their premium will be reduced by a tax credit, an immediate credit. But it depends on what their actual income is will determine the actual amount of that credit. So I'm sorry that I can't answer the lady's first question.
Mm-hmm.
The second question is that the state of Idaho is still pushing back and is still fighting, although that doesn't garner much media attention. But Governor Otter has been very bullish on fighting back against the provisions of the Affordable Care Act. We felt like we had to do the exchange in order to protect Idaho, and otherwise the federal government would just institute their exchange to Idahoans, and individuals would have been cut off, and your choices would have been limited. I'll give you an example. The federal government is charging 3.5% of premium to run through their exchange, And Governor Otter pushed back on that because of the Idaho exchange. We still had to connect to the federal exchange, and they still wanted to charge that 3.5%. He pushed back on it and got them to where they're not charging Idaho citizens anything to connect. Other states are now calling Governor Otter, and saying, "How did you get that done? We want that same deal that Idaho got." So the governor has been working very hard, as well as the Department of Insurance and others, to push back on the provisions where we can, and we are certainly open to joining with other states if we have any other opportunity for a legal challenge.
You know, and right there, let me interject that this morning in the paper, Wayne Hoffman, president of the Freedom Foundation, really criticized Butch Otter and his stance and even called it Otter Care instead of Obamacare. How would you respond to that, gentleman?
Well, I've known Wayne for a long time, and unfortunately, he's, in my opinion, trying to generate anger for his own association, for his own income, for his own benefit. It's not Otter Care. Governor Otter didn't come up with this. Governor Otter did not create the plans. He has pushed back. He is by nature a libertarian who has fought for 10th Amendment rights. And frankly, I don't know of any other governor, and I've served with 5, that has been stronger on protecting citizens' 10th Amendment rights and protecting us and our Constitution. But nonetheless, we had a choice to make, and the choice was, do we continue to fight on the exchange portion? We're fighting the other provisions, but do we continue to fight on the exchange portion and allow the federal government to come in? And we haven't done that on water. We don't want to do that on our natural resources. And why would we want to do that on our health care?
Absolutely.
We said, look, Idahoans can do it better. We want it managed by an Idaho board, Idaho citizens, and we will push back where we can push back.
Now, a couple of questions, and I'm running short on time, but I know that there's already been 19 different amendments made through Obama to Obamacare. This whole thing is just so poorly implemented. It's not ready for primetime playing. Wouldn't they be better off? And I admire the Republicans like Senator Ted Cruz and others that have said, wait a minute, we've got to have at least a year before full implementation to find out what is good and what's bad. Don't you agree with that, Dean, that they need to sit back and not put this in effect?
I agree with everything you said. It is poorly implemented. It is being crammed down our throats. The Democrats want it on the Republicans, but the truth of the matter is they ran this down the Republicans' throats right from the very start. And they have been unwilling to negotiate or compromise or work back on anything whatsoever. I agree with you. I was proud of Senator Risch and others for standing up with Ted Cruz and actually debating as well and helping him. And I would love to see him not fund it. I'm like you. I've listened to your program for the most part this morning, in between taking care of a few clients. But I'm like you. I don't see the shutdown as being that harmful. And so I think more power to them. Fight the good fight. But in the meantime, we also have to be prepared to protect Idaho citizens in the long run.
In the long haul, Dean, and of course, if anybody doesn't know it, Dean, of course, is in the insurance business, and quite frankly, he's my insurance man. But in the long run, Dean, when you look at this situation of Obama and how poorly this thing's been crafted, how poorly his verbiage was going back a couple of years ago, where he said, oh, you'll be able to keep your plan, you'll be able to keep your doctor, you'll be able to stay at the status quo, don't worry about Obamacare. I'm worried sick about Obamacare because I see this as a cancerous cell that's destroying medical care in general. Am I wrong?
You're not wrong. And it will be devastating in the long run. I believe it will put certainly agents out of business to some degree. Some will be able to make it. It'll put carriers out of business. Some will still be able to make it, but will not. I think it's leading us towards a system of socialized medicine because I think some of the failures they will in turn point to and say, see, this is why government needs to control health care. I think the costs will balloon out of control, and the only way that they feel like they'll be able to control costs is by a government takeover, complete takeover. And so absolutely. Now, I do want to touch on one quick point that was part of your question. We've got a lot of calls from people that got letters from some of the carriers.
Mm-hmm.
And some of the carriers have been informing their individuals that their policies won't qualify for the Affordable Care Act or for Obamacare. I want the consumers to understand that those letters, if you read it real closely, indicate that those plans will not qualify as of the renewal date in 2014. So if your policy doesn't renew till November of 2014, or if it renews November of 13, you're fine until November of 14. And then at that point, that's where you've got to make some tough choices. There are a few plans out there that qualify for what we call grandfather status. If your plan is a grandfathered plan, you do not want to get rid of it until it's absolutely unaffordable to keep it. You will want to hang on to it because it will not have some of the same effects as some of the other plans. Now, everybody's going to be different. Somebody who's unhealthy, they may choose to get rid of their grandfather plan and go to one of the new plans. Somebody who qualifies for a tax credit that pays 90% of the premium, they may choose to do that, but they're going to want to look at it real carefully.
Let me ask you this question, and this is not to denigrate anyone in the insurance industry, but I would think, and this is my own personal thought here, I would think that as absolutely mind-blowing as Obamacare is, and there's so many ifs, ands, buts, or ors included in this, your average insurance agent, how are they ever going to get the knowledge to try to explain this to their people that have policies?
Well, that's a really good question, and we are all attending. Most of us sat through 4 to 5 seminars, depending on the number of companies that we represent. I got the fun privilege of going online. Now, I've been licensed Zev for 30 years. I got the privilege of going online last week. I was told it was going to take 4 hours. It took all day. On the federal government's website to certify who I am and that I have an appropriate knowledge in order to talk to consumers about it. It was, to say it was insulting is an understatement. It was frustrating. I was so mad I could have spit nails by the end of the day. And yet there will be agents out there who will just plain hang it up and say, I'm not willing to go through this. It's a tough deal, and it's tough also because we really don't know how it's going to play out.
Yeah.
Tomorrow will be a new day, and we'll log in. We'll have some customers that should be looking at going on the exchange. And keep in mind, the earliest your plan can start is January 1st. And by the way, one other major difference is you have to buy your coverage ahead of time. You cannot wait until January 1st to buy your coverage. If you want coverage that starts January 1st, you have to apply before December 15th.
Okay, now
so you have to at least buy it before the 15th of the previous month.
Okay.
Which is also odd, but that's what can we expect out of our federal government?
Dean, I have to interrupt you, and I don't want to. I mean, time-wise, and I'm on a tight constraint here. I've got to do some commercials before I wrap it up. Please, I hope I can avail myself to call you and have you back on the air anytime and all the time, because this is a subject that's not going to be answerable in just a 30-minute segment.
Sure, Zeb, I'm willing to come on anytime, and to your listeners, if they've got questions, they can call me. I don't have to be their agent. I'm not asking to be everybody's agent. There are a lot of good agents out there, but I'm certainly willing to talk to people and help them work through their issues. And if they need a sounding board or somebody to truth check some questions, please feel free to call me. I'm here to do what I can to help.
All right, Senator Dean Cameron, and also an insurance man with Cameron and Siemens Insurance in Rupert, my friend, Dean Cameron. God bless you, man. I'll be in touch. Thank you so much.
Thanks, Deb.
Thank you.
Bye-bye.
I know I'm running late, and I got to quickly get this on. It's time for a weather update with MichaelRogersWeather.com, brought to you by Lennox Home Comfort Systems, gas furnaces, air conditioners, and heat pumps from our friends at Ramsey Heating and Electric, 2600 Overland Avenue in Burley. Here's Michael Rogers.
Well, hello, everyone. Michael Rogers from MichaelRogersWeather.com. Start of a brand spanking new week of you, me, fall weather, and chance of rain in the forecast today. In fact, we got some weather action. Look for a chance of showers just before lunchtime, and it's going to be breezy, too. You can look for wind gusts sustained at about 25 miles an hour, possibly gusting to about 40. It's going to get breezy today, but otherwise, just a typical fall day. Tonight, clear. Tomorrow, sunny. 68 for the high tomorrow. 68 for the high today. Enjoy the weather. The only weather you got.
There you go. Thank you, Lennox Home Comfort Systems, brought to you by Ramsey Heating and Electric at 2600 Overland Avenue in Burley, 678-0459. Our thanks to our major sponsor, of course, your Magic Valley Les Schwab Tire Centers. All 7 locations serving you with a absolutely huge tire sale going on right now. Check out the light truck and SUV Terramax tires starting at just $89.99. And also check out the passenger car tire, the Ultra Z900, on sale right now. All the tires are on sale. And don't forget, they've got the best in brake service, the best in front end alignment, shocks and struts, batteries. It's all there for you at all 7 locations. Your Magic Valley Les Schwab Tire Centers with Dave on Blue Lakes and Twin, Mike and Buell, Mike and Jerome, the Twist family in Paul, Lane and Rupert, John on Poline in Twin Falls, and Randy on Overland in Burley. Your Magic Valley Les Schwab Tire Centers. Ladies and gentlemen, got to wrap it up today. Tomorrow on the program, we're going to have Michael Novak, and along with Dr. History, and Steve Vogel's going to be on, great author, and talking about the War of 1812. That's very interesting. I had him on before. I read the book. It's phenomenal. All of this and much more. Don't forget tomorrow on Zeb at the Ranch. The way things were, the way things ought to be. God bless you. See you tomorrow morning at 8:06.